Hey guys, tonight, we're stepping into the mud-caked boots of someone you would never want to become, no matter how much you romanticize the past. Because tonight, you're about to become a thief in medieval Europe. Not a masked noble with a silver tongue, nor a fate-kissed protagonist. Just a shadow on the edge of society, slipping between cold stone walls and suspicious glances. In your pocket, nothing but a rock-hard stale loaf and a rusted knife. And ahead of you, a door left unlocked, with the faint scent of roasted meat still hanging in the air, so, before you can curl up under your blanket or close your eyes and drift off, take a moment to like this video and hit subscribe, only if you truly love the quiet, sharp-edged slivers of history. And if you can, leave a comment to let me know where you're listening from, and what time it is where you are. I always find it oddly comforting to imagine a little map lighting up, each point a nightlight beside someone who lets history lull them to sleep. Alright then. Now's the time to dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for a soft whispering hum in the background, take a deep breath, and together let's step quietly into the darkness. Where not everyone survives long enough to step back out, your stomach has become something more than just a body part. It's a character in your story, one that whines and growls and claws at your insides with a ferocity that never lets up. The pain has settled in for good. It sits in your gut like a second soul. You haven't eaten anything solid or satisfying in days. The last thing you had was a watery bowl of boiled cabbage, and that was 3 long days ago. It was barely warm, barely food, and barely enough to quiet the gnawing. You feel like you're on the brink of collapsing every time you stand up too quickly, and the only thing keeping you on your feet is the faint, flickering hope that maybe today, you might get your hands on something, anything, that someone else has left unguarded. And if you've ever imagined yourself as some charming outlaw, the kind who swings effortlessly from ropes and steals from the rich with a wink and a grin, let's just put that idea to rest right now. You're not a swashbuckling hero or a beloved folk legend. You're not Robin Hood. You're not even one of his merry men. You're cold, your hands are numb, your clothes are soaked through, and your skin is chapped and cracked from the wind. You're weak. You're half-starved. You're about to risk your life for a turnip that may not even be ripe. And if things go badly, and they almost always do, you might lose a hand, or worse, for trying to stay alive one more day. The odds are not in your favor. Frankly, it's a miracle you've made it this far. You don't remember ever owning shoes. Not proper ones, anyway. The closest you've come is wrapping your blistered, frostbitten feet in strips of burlap or old cloth, anything you could find to keep the cold from biting straight through your bones. They barely help. Every step is a reminder that you live in a world built to punish the poor. As you shuffle along a crooked alleyway squeezed between ancient, leaning wooden houses, so close together that they almost touch overhead, you glance around, scanning for any sign of movement, any scent of food on the breeze. You wonder, not for the first time, whether today might finally be the day you manage to eat without begging. Not because you're proud, but because your pride is long gone. Only the hunger remains. There's a baker, 2 streets over. You know his schedule better than he does. Lately, he's been staying open longer in the afternoons, probably trying to make a few extra coins before the frost sets in. You've noticed. So has every other desperate stomach within shouting distance. At this point, it's a waiting game, him versus you and everyone else who wakes up with hunger instead of hope. Being born into poverty in the 14th century is not simply a matter of bad luck. It's a sentence passed down to you at birth. You're probably one of 8 children, squeezed into a one-room hut with a dirt floor and a roof that leaks in 5 places. 2 of your siblings didn't make it past infancy, claimed by fever or cold or something worse. The rest may be out there somewhere, toiling in the fields, risking their lives for a few scraps, or lying in the mud after a beating for stealing eggs. You don't know. You haven't seen them in weeks. No schooling. No apprenticeship. No trade. No inheritance. No safety net. The future you've been promised is the same as the past you inherited: pain, silence, and a hunger that never goes away. Hunger has become your closest companion. It's not the kind that comes before lunch or after a skipped meal. This is a hollow, aching, dizzying hunger that makes your limbs shake and your vision blur. It seeps into your bones and nestles into your skull. Sometimes you think you can smell food where there is none. Sometimes you see spots from standing up too fast. And yes, sometimes you catch yourself eyeing a toddler's bread crust and wondering, just briefly, if you could get away with it. The voice in your head that used to whisper, "Wait until tomorrow," has long since fallen silent. All that remains is the instinct to survive. Nothing noble. Just basic, undeniable will. You've tried honest work, though that's a laughable phrase in your world. One time, a tanner let you help scrape hides for a day. The smell of rotting animal flesh clung to your skin for a week. The welts on your arms lasted almost as long. He paid you with half a potato and an onion that was so mushy it disintegrated when you bit into it. That was 3 weeks ago, and you haven't been back. Now you hover near the edge of the market, trying to look like you belong. You lean against walls, pretend to wait for someone, occasionally point at nothing in particular, just enough to seem like you're not casing the stalls. But your eyes are doing all the work. You study every movement, every lapse in attention, every morsel left unguarded. There it is, a small loaf of bread, crusty and golden, sitting at the edge of a stall. Its owner is haggling over a basket of pears. You wait. You breathe slowly. You count your heartbeats. 1 second. That's all you need, and when the moment comes, your body moves before your mind can argue. You snatch the loaf and take off running like your entire soul depends on it. Because it does, but you're not the only one who's hungry. And you're certainly not the only one who's fast. A scrappy, half-starved dog takes off after you, barking with glee as if it's part of the chase. Behind you, a chorus of angry voices rises up. The word thief rings out and bounces from one vendor to another like a church bell gone mad. You weave through the chaos, ducking under hanging linens, crashing past fishmongers, slipping through puddles of something you don't want to think about. Mud, filth, worse. You turn sharply left, then right, heart pounding like a drum, but you don't get far. A thick arm grabs your collar and yanks you backwards so hard your feet leave the ground. The butcher. You've seen him before. He's enormous, stained with blood and sweat, and not particularly interested in fairness or backstory. With a grunt, he throws you down onto the cobbles. The stolen loaf flies from your hands, bounces once, and rolls into a puddle where it begins to disintegrate. It no longer looks like salvation. But that doesn't matter. You're not going to eat it anyway. The town watch arrives quickly, as if summoned by the scent of violence. And here's something worth knowing about medieval justice: there are no lengthy trials, no courts of appeals, no defense attorneys pacing in front of a jury. None of that exists for you. Someone screamed. The bread was in your hand. That's more than enough, the punishment for your first offense. Stocks. They're feeling merciful, so they drag you into the town square and lock your arms and neck into a heavy wooden frame. At first, it just feels awkward. Then humiliating. Then painful. After that, the crowd shows up. Children point. Adults sneer. Some come with vegetables. Others with rocks. Historians still debate whether public punishment in this era was about justice or simply a form of entertainment. But from where you stand, or rather, where you're trapped, it's mostly about dodging spoiled fruit. Every hour in the stocks crawls by like a year. People shout things you can't even understand. One woman throws a dead mouse. You don't know if it's meant as an insult or a gift. Eventually, someone takes pity. Maybe a passing merchant, or perhaps a deacon from the nearby church. Whoever it is, they release you. Your neck throbs. Your arms are sore. Your pride, if you had any left, has crumbled. And your stomach still aches with emptiness. You avoid the main roads as you limp back toward the slums. Not because you feel guilt. Shame is a luxury that has long since stopped mattering to you. You do it because the watch might still be on the lookout. And the punishment for a second offense is much, much worse. That night, curled under a frayed piece of canvas, surrounded by 3 other children who look just as battered and just as hungry, you listen to one of them whisper a new trick. If you rub your hands in lard, the dogs can't smell you, he says. You nod. You file it away in the cluttered corners of your mind. Because tomorrow, there's a good chance you'll have to try again, you drift off to sleep thinking about the bread. You never even tasted it. Sometimes, in your dreams, you're someone else. Maybe a sailor with stories to tell. Maybe a mercenary with scars and coins. Maybe a monk, safe behind stone walls. But the dream always fades when the cold creeps in and the rats begin to chew on the edges of your blanket, and all of this, was just for a crust of bread. The bruises on your ribs have settled into a color that looks almost unnatural, the kind of deep, bruised blue that only medieval peasants and overripe plums are intimately familiar with. They're not just marks anymore, they are spreading badges of survival, reminders that your last attempt to eat ended in violence and shame. Every time you breathe too deeply or twist a little too fast, a sharp jab of pain reminds you of where you've been. You are sore in a way that seeps into the marrow. Your joints feel stiff, as though they belong to someone twice your age. And through all of it, the ache in your stomach continues to gnaw like a rat in the walls, persistent and methodical, because that small, sad loaf of bread, barely more than a crust, cost you more than just your pride. It cost you 2 full days of missed chances. While you sat in the stocks, publicly humiliated and pelted with everything from turnips to insults, other beggars and thieves continued to stake out corners, scavenge leftovers, and work their way into the occasional favor. But not you. Not anymore. Now, even among the poorest, you are marked as a risk. No one in the slums wants to associate with the thief who got caught. Even the outcasts have standards. You've gained a reputation, and it's not the kind that wins you scraps or sympathy. You are known now, but not in a way that helps. Still, none of that matters to the creature in your belly. It snarls and twists and howls for something, anything. It doesn't care about bruised ribs or social standing or the whisper of your name among the alleyways. Hunger is the only truth you know, and it erases all other considerations. So you're back out again, doing what you do, because there is no other option. There is no safety net. No second chance waiting quietly around the corner. You're not stealing because you want to. You are not driven by greed, because greed implies the presence of options. You steal to survive. You steal so that your legs do not buckle beneath you from malnourishment. You steal to push back against the dizziness just long enough to walk a little farther and maybe, just maybe, make it through the day. This time, it's a turnip, not exactly a feast. It's hard, lumpy, covered in dirt, and still slick with damp from the morning's frost. A peasant's vegetable in every possible sense. No one craves a turnip. No one steals one for the flavor. But it's sitting there, right at the edge of a tired woman's cart, and she's too busy berating her mule to notice how close it is to becoming yours. The poor animal looks about as defeated as you do, head down, ears twitching with fatigue. It takes barely 2 seconds. Your hand moves in one smooth motion, honed from hunger and necessity. You pluck the vegetable, duck behind the nearest barrel, and sink your teeth into it before you've even brushed away the dirt. It tastes exactly like it looks, like something dug out of a cold field. Crunchy in the wrong way, stringy, bitter, and punishing. Every bite is an exercise in self-discipline. But you chew through it anyway, because you know this will likely be your only meal for the week. This is survival, not taste, and then, with cruel precision, just as you're halfway through that miserable mouthful, you hear footsteps. Heavy. Deliberate. You recognize the sound immediately. The guards. Of course they're here. Medieval justice has a sense of timing so reliable you could set your entire life to it. You try to disappear into the shadows, to fold into the scenery like an unnoticed pile of rags. But one of them spots the movement. Hey! The word cracks like a whip across the square. You're too weak to run. Your muscles don't even twitch. And you're too exhausted to cry. You've reached the stage of fatigue where emotion becomes a luxury, and energy is preserved only for movement and breath. The guards know you now. They recognize your face. You are no longer anonymous. You are familiar. This time, there's no need for restraint. They don't tie your hands or bark threats. You're not going anywhere, and they know it. They march you to the town square at a steady pace, your footsteps dragging behind them like a prisoner in chains. As you pass two women selling bundles of wilted herbs, one of them murmurs under her breath. You catch the word second offense. It stings in a way your bruises don't. A boy, barely older than a toddler, picks up a pebble and tosses it toward your feet. Not hard enough to injure, just hard enough to remind you of your place in this world. You arrive at the square, and the guards let go of you like you're nothing but garbage. Then a man in a red hood steps forward. He isn't dressed like a priest, and he doesn't carry himself like a soldier. There is no armor, no weapon strapped to his hip. But he holds a small pouch in one hand, and something about the way he moves makes your skin crawl. You understand, instinctively, that this is worse. The man doesn't say a word. He steps in close, leans slightly forward, and studies your face with the bored disinterest of a housewife inspecting a tomato at market. Then, without a sound, he reaches into his pouch and produces a small blade. It gleams in the afternoon light. It is clean. But it will not stay that way. The crowd begins to gather, as they always do. There is something magnetic about punishment in this era. It pulls people from their doorways and stalls, from behind curtains and from church pews. Medieval justice is never performed in silence. It demands an audience. The sentence for your second theft is not debated. It is not questioned. It is not delayed. It is branding. They do not waste time with explanations. There is no paperwork, no chance to plead, no moment to explain that you were starving. None of that matters. Someone made a decision long before you arrived. A hot iron is prepared, heated until it glows a soft, menacing orange. The branding varies from place to place. Sometimes a T for thief. Sometimes a letter that marks your city's shame. Either way, the symbol is the same, permanent. Your forehead is spared this time, though you're not sure why. But your hand, the one you used to grab that turnip, is not so lucky. The pain arrives all at once. It is not a slow burn. It is fast, searing, and so deep it feels like your bones are being carved. You do not scream. Not because you are brave, but because the scream dies before it reaches your throat. Your jaw clenches. Your body shakes uncontrollably. Smoke curls from your skin. The hiss of the iron against flesh is sickening and final. You think, with almost absurd clarity, about the turnip. Some historians will later argue whether branding served to scare others away from crime or simply make repeat offenders easier to spot. You suspect the truth doesn't matter. What matters is that your hand now tells a story that your mouth no longer has to. Later, alone and hunched near the edge of a slow-moving river, you dip your hand into the cold water. The burn throbs violently. But the chill dulls the worst of it. You stare at the red, blistered mark and begin to understand the weight of it. You are no longer simply a hungry child or a desperate soul. You are now something else. You are, officially and visibly, a criminal. You carry proof of it on your skin. There is no going back. Finding work was already next to impossible. Now it becomes a fantasy. No one hires a thief. No one trusts someone marked by the law. And if you thought pity might still find you, think again. That too has evaporated. Before, someone might have offered you a crust of bread, maybe a handful of beans. Now they spit at your feet. Some cross themselves as you walk past, as if you carry a disease. You try to wrap your hand in clean linen, but you don't have any. So you tear a strip from your already ragged shirt, winding it clumsily around the wound. It stings, but there is nothing else to do. You re-enter the alleys, though now even here, you're treated differently. People shift away. No one wants to be near you. No one wants your luck to rub off. You hear the murmurs. Branded. Marked. Dangerous. It's almost laughable. You couldn't outrun a lame chicken right now, let alone cause anyone real harm. But perception rules the streets. And perception says you are no longer one of them. You are something else. There is one exception. An old man with more bones than skin, missing 2 fingers and most of his teeth, hobbles over and sits beside you. He says nothing at first. Then, without ceremony, he hands you a roasted beet. It is small, half-eaten, and cold. But it is food. You do not ask where he got it. You just eat. He tells you, almost casually, that he was branded too. Long ago, for stealing apples. He smiles through cracked lips. They grow back every year, he says with a shrug. We don't. He laughs at his own words, then breaks into a coughing fit. When he catches his breath, he offers a piece of advice. Don't go for food anymore. Too many eyes. Try pockets instead. The idea settles in your mind like something sticky. Pockets. You've never picked one. It feels different. Dirtier. Food is survival. Coins are theft. But when you have sunk this low, the line between necessity and morality becomes harder to see. So the next day, you test the theory. You spot a drunkard weaving through the market, his coin purse swinging from his belt like an invitation. He hums to himself, slurring the tune. He's not paying attention to anything. You follow close behind, heart hammering, your fingers tremble. The purse is leather, tied with simple string. You reach. Slowly. Carefully. You tug, and then, he turns, you freeze. So does he. A moment stretches into eternity, then he laughs. Go on, take it, he says, pressing it against your chest. See if I care. You run. Not out of guilt, although that exists. You run because his kindness terrifies you more than punishment ever could. You stop 5 streets away. Breathless. You open the pouch, 3 copper coins, enough for a meal. Maybe 2, you trade one for a hunk of bread and some onions. You trade another for a blanket that someone probably stole before you. The third you keep, just to feel it, to remind yourself that you still possess something of value. That night, curled in the corner of an abandoned tannery, the smell of old leather thick in your nose, you fall asleep. And in that quiet, painful moment of reflection, you come to understand something important. You are no longer merely someone who stole, you have become someone who steals, and that, you realize, is something different entirely. Your first successful pickpocketing feels like a miracle when it happens. In that instant, when your fingers close around the pouch and you manage to walk away unnoticed, it's as though the world has finally, briefly, tilted in your favor. For once, you are not the victim of the story. For once, you have taken something rather than been denied it. But like most so-called miracles in the unforgiving world of medieval life, this one comes with a cost that will only reveal itself in time. You may have slipped the purse into your pocket and escaped with your ribs intact, but you've crossed a line now. You are no longer someone who steals food out of desperation. You are now someone who takes money. And that changes everything, not in the way you might hope. You are not wealthier. You are not safer. You are not suddenly on a path toward comfort. The only thing that has changed is the kind of punishment you can expect. Stealing bread lands you in the stocks. Stealing coin, however, carries the risk of the gallows. That's the irony. Food is for the body. Coin is for the system. And the system does not forgive easily. You learn quickly, faster than you expected. The marketplace is not filled with easy targets. Pockets are fewer than they appear. Most people, especially the ones with anything worth taking, hide their purses deep beneath thick layers of wool and linen. Some even sew them into their clothing. The truly cautious carry nothing at all, relying on trusted vendors to keep tallies. And those who do let a coin pouch swing from their belt tend to walk with a hand near it, or with a guard beside them. Every coin they carry is guarded not by luck, but by layers of habit and suspicion. It makes your job more difficult than you imagined. Especially when your hands are calloused, your nails are cracked, and your fingers tremble from both cold and fear. Your nerves are frayed like the edge of your only shirt, which now hangs from your frame in thin, shapeless folds. Still, you watch. You always watch. That becomes your new trade. Every time you step into a market square, you shift from person to shadow. You start noticing everything. Who limps, and which side they favor. Who leans into conversation, turning their body away from their purse. Which merchant gets lost in their own speech, and which baker steps away from his cart to yell at stray dogs. You begin to map the square in your mind, not by streets and stalls, but by opportunities and blind spots. You also notice the children. They notice you too. The kids in your part of town have seen more hardship than most adults in richer neighborhoods. They aren't innocent. They aren't naive. Many of them have lifted an apple from a barrel or drained a mug of ale when no one was looking. Some do it for fun. Others for survival. But there's a difference between them and you now. A visible difference. The mark on your hand tells them all they need to know. One afternoon, as the sun lowers and the air cools, a wiry boy with sharp elbows and sharper eyes approaches you. His name is Renner. He's younger than you by at least a year, but he moves with confidence that belongs to someone twice your age. The kind of confidence that is born not from safety, but from being cornered and choosing to act anyway. You got the mark, he says simply, tapping your bandaged hand with one grimy finger. Means you're one of us now. You're not sure what us means, but you follow him anyway. Curiosity, hunger, and loneliness push your legs forward. He leads you through a network of alleys you've never noticed before. Behind a cobbler's shop that reeks of leather and sweat. Past a half-collapsed stable, where two horses gnaw at splinters. Down into a cellar that smells like boiled turnips, wet wood, and the kind of hair that hasn't seen water in weeks. The air is heavy with dampness. Inside the space, lit by a stub of candle jammed into a bottle, are 6 others. Boys and girls. None older than 15. All with eyes that flicker with suspicion and hope in equal measure. A girl sits cross-legged near the wall. She has a scar where an ear used to be. When she sees you, she nods once. That is your welcome. This is not a guild. There are no rules written in ink or scratched into wood. It is a collection of the unwanted, the forgotten, the half-starved. They share tips. They share scraps. They trade secrets the way others trade coins. That night, you learn about the night watch. Don't look them in the eye, Renner tells you. They remember eyes. Everyone nods. It's not superstition. It's fact. There are 3 main patrols. One that passes the church and watches the northern roads. One that loops through the marketplace and stops near the bathhouse. The third is not discussed lightly. The third is dangerous. They carry iron cudgels and no patience. They do not shout warnings. They do not ask questions until they've broken something. You also learn about the bells, unlike the alarms of the modern world, which blare from metal boxes and light up control panels. Cities in the Middle Ages relied on bells. Big, heavy, echoing bells. If someone saw a thief and raised the alarm, a town crier would alert the tower. Then someone would ring the bell. The sound traveled far and fast. It turned every citizen into a potential pursuer. Historians debate whether it actually stopped crime or simply made it theatrical. You don't know the answer. But you know what it does to your heart. You know how the sound settles in your spine like ice. A week later, you are invited to take part in something bigger. A heist, they call it. Not grand, but coordinated. 3 of you take positions in different parts of the square. One makes a scene, usually by knocking over a cart or yelling about fire. The others use the distraction. It doesn't go smoothly. These things never do. You snatch a coin pouch from a woman wearing silk shoes. They shine even in the dirt. You'd admire her style if you weren't too busy running for your life. She screams. A man yells. A dog joins the chaos with gleeful barking. Then comes the bell, that sound. It isn't just a noise. It is a judgment pronounced in metal. Each clang feels like it is aimed at your soul. Like the city itself is pointing a finger at you. You duck into alleys. You leap over a barrel. You land in something wet and foul. Someone grabs your sleeve. The fabric tears. You keep running. Back in the cellar, Renner is already there. His nose is bleeding. His lip is split. But he's smiling. We did it, he says. You empty the pouch. 4 small coins. And something else. A ring with a cracked gemstone, dulled by time and grime. The girl with one ear leans forward, frowning. That's trouble, she says. Jewelry means they'll look harder. She's right. The next morning, you see it. Posters nailed to wood beams and slapped onto stone walls. They don't show your face. Not yet. But there's a description: tall boy. Dirty cloak. Burned right hand. You are halfway to legend. You stay out of sight. You beg again, playing a different role now. You become the pitiable figure, the weak thing. People give more when they believe you incapable of harm. It's an illusion, but it works. At night, you lie awake. The sound of the bell haunts you even in your dreams. It tolls through the silence. It rings in your chest. It chases you across fields that no longer exist. Then, one evening, a whistle breaks the night. Sharp. Intentional. It's Renner's signal. You find him crouched behind a butcher's stall. His face is pale, eyes wide with something between fear and fury. They got Lena, he whispers. Lena. The girl missing an ear. She tried to trade the ring, he says. They caught her. Caught not in secret, but in public. Caught not quietly, but ceremoniously. She is in the square. The scaffold is being readied. You want to run there. You want to see. You don't want to see. You want to stop it. You know you can't. The crowd is already gathering. Not because they care about Lena. Not because they seek justice. But because this is their entertainment. Parents bring their children. Vendors sell meat on sticks. Someone plays a lute. It has the feel of celebration. She is barely older than you. She will not leave the square alive. In this system, age offers no mercy. Theft is theft. You cannot look. You cannot leave. The lever falls. The rope snaps. The hush descends. Then the cheer rises. Then the lute resumes. you vanish into the maze of alleyways, gasping, heart pounding so hard you feel it in your ears. Your ribs ache with the force of each breath. You feel like you are being hollowed out. For days, Lena's face lingers. You stop speaking to Renner. You stop visiting the cellar. You stop stealing, you survive on crusts and stolen sips. You sleep in abandoned corners that even rats avoid. You stare at your branded hand and wonder how fast the journey from crust to scaffold really is. Historians still discuss executions like Lena's. Some say they were warnings. Some say they were theater. You no longer care about the theory, because now you are afraid, and because now you understand something that cannot be unlearned. This life only offers two exits: you get caught and hang in the square. Or you vanish quietly into a nameless grave, buried in the dirt, forgotten, unless, somehow, you discover a third path, and maybe, just maybe, one exists. You start walking differently now. Not with more speed, not with less urgency, but with a deliberate kind of shrinking. Your steps become shorter, more controlled. Your arms stay close to your body, your shoulders curl inward, your chin dips just low enough to hide your face without looking suspicious. You begin to fold yourself into the scenery. You practice becoming background. The goal is not to move unnoticed, but to become unnoticeable altogether. And when you succeed, the city forgets you for a little while. That's what you need most now. Anonymity is no longer just a preference. It's protection, because after Lena, you finally understand something you should have learned earlier. There is one golden rule for medieval thieves. It's not about skill, or stealth, or even luck. It's about visibility. If people see you, if they notice you, if they remember your face or your stride or the way you blink, then you're already in danger. The moment you are observed, you are at risk. And risk, in your world, leads to endings. Still, quitting is not on the table. Not now. You keep going. You convince yourself this is temporary. A rough patch. A holding pattern. You just need a little more time. A few more coins. Just enough to last until winter thaws and the streets stop crunching with frost beneath your feet. Just until your ribs stop looking like the framework of a collapsed tent. You repeat these thoughts until they sound like prayers. But deep down, you know the truth. No one retires from this life. They don't age out of it. They vanish, so you adapt. You begin to treat survival like a science. You study the night watch with the intensity of a scholar preparing for an exam where failure means death. You watch their movements. You note their routines. Mondays, they're sluggish from the weekend. Tuesdays, they walk faster and switch up their paths. On Thursdays, the captain drinks too much and leans on his torch like a crutch. You commit to memory the sound of their boots on cobblestone, the intervals between their lanterns, the way torchlight moves across stone walls. You learn which dogs bark at everything and which ones have gone deaf with age. The smallest patterns become the difference between escape and arrest, and as you learn about the guards, you also come to fear something else even more. The people, because if you are ever caught mid-act, if your hand lingers too long where it shouldn't, if someone notices your fingers slip inside a pouch, then it's not the guards who will get to you first. It's the crowd. In this century, the idea of vigilantism isn't an eccentric habit. It's a public tradition. If someone shouts the word thief, it echoes like a starting gun. People turn. They react. Within seconds, everyone within earshot becomes a temporary deputy. Some historians will later describe this as a beautiful example of medieval communal responsibility. Others, more honestly, will call it what it was. Mob justice. Swift. Brutal. And rarely questioned. It's late one evening, long after the bells of Compline have rung and most of the honest city has gone to sleep. You decide to risk one more lift. The opportunity is small, but tempting. A merchant has left his satchel half open beside him on the bench of a busy tavern. You see the flap shift with every breath he takes, the gleam of metal just inside. You edge closer. Each step timed to the rhythm of laughter and tankards hitting wood. Your heart pounds loud enough to deafen you, but your hands stay steady. Just one coin. That's all you need. Just one. Enough to get through the next day without chewing on regret. Your fingers slip into the pouch. The motion is clean, practiced, almost graceful now. You barely even feel the cloth as you lift it aside, and then he turns, not quickly. Not violently. He simply shifts his eyes and lifts an eyebrow. He sees everything. But instead of yelling, instead of drawing attention to you, instead of reacting like everyone else you've ever stolen from, he smiles. You're terrible at this, he says. His voice is calm, amused, and completely without fear. Lucky for you, I need someone terrible. You freeze. Entirely. The weight in your stomach drops like a stone in a well. This is not a beginning wrapped in redemption. He is not a nobleman seeking to rescue a lost soul. He is not here to offer you comfort, or shelter, or some benevolent way out. He is offering something else entirely. Work. The kind of work that slips between cracks and never sees sunlight. Slippery, shadowy, and full of quiet risks, he introduces himself as Master Garin. You call him Sir when you must. He does not insist on it, but the title seems appropriate. He does not move like a merchant. He does not speak like one either. He teaches you quickly, and what he teaches changes the way you see the world. He shows you how to recognize forged seals at a glance. How to open letters without disturbing the wax. How to weigh coins and know their purity by touch. How to tap a barrel and hear whether there's a false bottom. The man wears fine clothing, but there's nothing soft about him. He is less a trader and more a pirate wrapped in silk, but he pays. And more importantly, he offers something rarer than gold. He offers protection, as long as you run for him. As long as you carry his packages and deliver his messages and never ask questions, the guards leave you alone. You're no longer a street thief with a mark on your hand. You are someone with a patron. And Garin is not the kind of man who is easy to cross. Whether it's fear or coin that keeps the authorities at bay, you never ask. But it works. Still, safety is never absolute. One evening, as you move quietly through a side street with a sealed scroll tucked beneath your cloak, you feel it. Not footsteps. Not a shadow. Just a shift in the air. A prickle along your neck. A sensation like static under your skin. You are being followed. You double back. You dart through familiar alleyways. You climb a wall where bricks shift under your fingers. You glance behind you and catch a glimpse of red, a scarf. Renner. You haven't seen him since Lena's execution. And now here he is, trailing you through the dark. When you confront him, he doesn't bother lying. You're working for him, he says. His voice is quiet, but filled with accusation. You think that makes you better. You do not answer. You do not offer an excuse. You just look at him. Renner spits at your feet. The gesture is small, but sharp. You're not a thief anymore, he mutters. You're a pet. Then he turns and disappears into the night. The word echoes in your mind. Pet. The insult lingers longer than the pain of your branding ever did, because he's not wrong. You're still hungry. You're still cold. You still sleep with one eye open. But now you do it in better clothes. With better shoes. With a blanket that doesn't reek of mildew. And worse than all of that, you kind of like it, because you're no longer prey. You have a name you can mention. You carry coin. You walk streets you once crawled through. It's not freedom. But it's a leash lined in velvet, and you think about Lena. Often, would she have taken this deal? Would she have traded pride for survival, some historians will one day debate whether the criminal underworld of medieval towns gave the poor new paths or simply gave them new masters. You don't need the debate. From where you stand, it's the only ladder anyone ever lowered, so you climb it, one rung at a time. You deliver messages sealed with wax and strange symbols. You exchange barrels in the backs of wine cellars. Once, you deliver a silver crucifix to a bishop who doesn't seem surprised to see you. You never ask questions. That's part of the deal, and then, you make a mistake, you take a coin. Just one. A single copper piece from the bottom of a pouch. You thought no one would notice. Garen notices everything. He does not shout. He does not strike. He hands you a knife. If you want to keep working for me, he says, you'll need to earn back trust. He gestures to a man tied to a chair. You don't recognize the man. That doesn't matter. He has been accused of stealing from Garen. You hold the knife. You freeze. You drop it. I'm not a killer, you say. Garen nods. That's the right answer, he says. Then he hands the knife to someone else. You do not watch. From that moment, you understand where the line truly is. Stealing is one thing. Survival demands it. But killing belongs to a different world. A darker one, and yet, it is good to be reminded, because in Garen's world, every coin comes with a chain. Every favor pulls tighter. Every job is another knot. You are still branded. Still marked. Still a thief, but now, you are a thief with better shoes. The shoes do not fit as well as you pretend they do. One of your toes scrapes against the inside of the leather with every step, rubbed raw and stinging. The left sole has already begun to split, and when you walk over wet stone, it slaps the ground with a soft, wet squish. Still, you wear them like they were stitched by a royal cobbler. Because these shoes were not stolen. They were given to you. And that, in your world, means more than anyone else might understand. To someone else, it might seem like a minor difference, almost invisible. But to you, it is monumental. It means that for once, someone handed you something without suspicion or strings, not as a punishment or warning, but as a kind of reward. It means someone saw you and made a choice to offer instead of take. Of course, that someone was a smuggler. A man who lived in shadows and traded in secrets. A man with morals as flexible as old rope. But even so, the gift mattered. Your shoes squeak faintly on the slick cobbles as you make your way through the alley near St. Martin's Bell Tower. It is one of the city's older corners, where moss grows in thick patches between stones and the walls lean slightly as if tired from centuries of standing. This path has become familiar. It is your usual delivery route now. You carry a bundle tucked under your arm, carefully wrapped in oilskin to protect its contents from the drizzle in the air. What's inside? You never ask. That was one of the first rules. It could be rare spices that would earn a duke's ransom, or powdered silver meant for a forger's mold. It could be letters sealed with noble crests, full of treason or gossip or worse. But it is not your place to know. Garen always said he trusted silence more than loyalty. At the edge of the district, you cross a street where the watch usually patrols. One of them stands leaning against a post. He gives you a nod. Another, walking in the opposite direction, tips his cap without stopping. 3 months ago, those same men might have slammed you into a wall just for loitering. They might have twisted your arm or broken a finger to remind you that thieves do not get to walk freely. Now, they let you pass. Some of them do it because Garen pays them regularly. Others do it because they would rather not be involved in what happens when they don't, but the city is not blind. Its eyes are everywhere, even in corners where no one stands. The whispers reach you gradually. Like smoke slipping beneath doors. Like wind moving through broken shutters. You catch fragments as you pass, a name muttered under breath, a slur spat from a doorway. Some call you Garen's runner. Others choose less flattering terms. They call you his rat, his dog, his shadow. You try not to react. You keep your face still and your pace steady. But you hear them all the same. Because there is no such thing as a reputation that remains quiet for long. Even invisibility, when practiced well enough, starts to shine, especially when the coins in the market begin to change hands faster than the bishop's hymns can echo off the walls. The other thieves, your former companions, the ones who once huddled beside you in filth and frost, have stopped speaking to you. They do not smile when they pass. Some won't even look. Others stare too long. Their eyes are cold, and their expressions say more than their mouths ever could. Perhaps it is jealousy. Perhaps it is fear. But most of all, you know it is something else. The mark on your hand glows brighter now in their minds than it ever did on your skin. One evening, you walk past a boy selling eels from a wooden bucket. He looks up, sneers, and hisses the word traitor through yellowed teeth. You do not turn your head. You do not break stride. You pretend you never heard him, but the word lingers. It follows you like smoke on your clothes. Because deep down, you still think of yourself as one of them. You still remember what it felt like to be hungry beside them. To sleep in doorways and drink rainwater. To share the heat of a stolen blanket. You try, once, to buy bread from a vendor you stole from long ago. Her eyes narrow when you offer the coin. Did you earn this? She asks. Her voice is sour and sharp, like vinegar poured on an open cut. You lie, without blinking. Yes, ma'am. Worked all week carrying sacks at the docks. She does not believe you. You can see that. But she takes the coin anyway, because coin still spends, even when trust does not. In that moment, you learn something new. A quiet lesson, wrapped in bitter truth. Legitimacy, like so many things in your world, is not real. It is performative. It doesn't matter if your hands are dirty, as long as you hide the stains. It doesn't matter where the money came from, as long as you act like you belong. A better cloak. A straighter back. Fewer flinches when dogs bark or guards whistle. Garen teaches you even more now. He expands your understanding in ways you never imagined. He shows you how to read basic contracts and how to tell when they have been doctored. He teaches you to distinguish between the sheen of real church silver and the dullness of tin disguised with polish. He points out how spies behave differently than merchants and how to spot one by the way they hold their hands when idle. He never calls you friend. But there are moments, brief and unsettling, when he speaks to you like a father might speak to a son. And that is dangerous. Because you know men like Garen are not built to last. The closer you get to them, the more certain it becomes that when they fall, they will pull you with them, and fall he does. It happens on a rainy morning when your bones ache from sleeping beneath a leaking roof. Your joints feel swollen, your breath fogs in the air, and you are just starting to plan your first delivery when the news reaches you. Garen has been arrested. Not by the city watch, but by a different kind of authority. Men in crimson cloaks. Men who do not barter or bluff. Royal enforcers. The kind of men whose boots never get muddy, even when the streets run with filth. They do not come for you. Not yet, but you know they will. The trap is closing. You spend the rest of the day hidden behind a mason's kiln. The bricks still hold warmth from the night's fires. You press your back against them and try to stop shaking. You think about fleeing. About real escape. Over the river. Into the forests. Maybe you could join a monastery. Learn Latin. Change your name and start again somewhere no one knows your history. Then, just before dusk, you hear a voice, a whisper. Renner, he's there again. Watching you. Grinning in the way only someone who has waited a long time can grin. They took him, he says. His voice almost sings the words. And now it's your turn. You lunge. You grab his wrist harder than he expects. And he flinches. I didn't turn anyone in, you say. He shrugs. I didn't say you did. Then he leans closer. But you're still going to burn with him. That night, you do not sleep. Not because fear keeps you awake, though it does, but because everything you believed in has collapsed. The leash you followed. The deals that shielded you. The name that protected you. They are gone. Garen is gone. And you are exposed. Once again, you are just a thief. But worse than that, you are now a known thief. With a branded hand and no patron. No master to defend you. No shelter from the wind, you become a target again. Not just for the watchmen, but for the other thieves. The younger ones want to prove themselves. The older ones want revenge. You are no longer one of them, but you are not far enough above them to be untouchable. You try to find honest work. You go to the docks. A fishmonger needs someone to gut cod. A cooper asks for help hauling nails. But the moment they see your hand, they step back. Oh, they say. That kind of boy. One woman, with a soft face and tired eyes, offers you a bowl of soup. But only if you sit outside her door. That evening, you sit on the stone steps of the church porch. Inside, candles flicker. The warm glow seeps through the cracks in the wood. The priest walks by. His robes brush the air beside you. He does not stop. Perhaps he does not see you. Perhaps he chooses not to. You feel invisible again. But not in the way you once wished for. Historians will debate the meaning of branding. Was it punishment? Rehabilitation? A tool of surveillance? You no longer wonder. To you, it has become one thing above all others. It is exile. You are no longer punished, you are marked, permanently. And so, you return to what you know. You steal again, not with a crew. Not with a plan. Not with the thrill you once felt. You steal because you must. A coin from a stall drawer. A candle from the church. A ring from the hand of a sleeping traveler. No celebration. No rush of adrenaline. Only necessity. You eat the bread and forget the taste. You are better at it now. Smoother. Quieter. Sharper, but something has changed. The fear is gone, and that is not a good thing, because it was fear that once kept you alive, and without it, you begin to wonder just how close you are to making a final mistake. A fatal one. One from which there is no turning back. The days begin to melt together, each one blending seamlessly into the next. Gray seeps into grayer, and soon you can no longer tell where one morning ends and the next begins. The city hums in monotone. Even the bells, once clear markers of mass, market, and mourning, now seem to lose their shape. They become background noise, dull and weightless. You wake. You steal. You sleep. Then you do it again. The same alleyways greet you. The same cracked stone paths underfoot. The same pairs of half-broken shoes scrape across the pavement, each step sounding softer, more distant. Your branded hand remains your companion. It still stings in winter, still itches in the damp. You've taken to tucking it deep inside your sleeve whenever you're in public. It never fades. Not fully. Not enough to be forgotten. Even when the skin around it toughens, even when the nerves go numb, the meaning of it does not vanish. Sometimes you glimpse your own reflection in puddles. Not clearly. Just a flicker. A shape moving where your foot had been. You stop for a moment, squinting at the surface. There's something strange in the figure. Something not quite familiar. You wonder, do I even look like myself anymore? But then, what did you look like before? Who was that person? A boy with sunken cheeks and hollow eyes. A hungry boy. Now you are something else entirely. Now you are a haunted one. Then it comes, a rumor. A faint whisper passed through clenched teeth and shadowed corners. You hear it first from a pair of fishwives arguing over the price of salted cod. Then again from barkeeps pouring beer too thin to be called ale. You hear it a third time from boys hiding behind mills, trading secrets like marbles. The same word each time: the thieves are organizing. You scoff when you first hear it. What thieves? Every hungry child with quick hands calls themselves a thief. You've watched them brawl over crusts and trip over their own plans. You've seen their hands shake at the first sign of danger. But this sounds different. The way people speak it, with lowered voices and glances over shoulders, makes it feel heavier. There is talk of something called the circle. A network. A collective. An invisible order of pickpockets, cut purses, and rooftopers who move like smoke through the city, working together in silence. They share earnings. They protect one another. They know the names of guards and the gaps in patrol routes. You think it sounds like fantasy. Or worse, like bait, but then it finds you. You are crouched behind the apothecary's shop, knees pressed to cold stone, your eyes fixed on the counter through the front window. You wait for the woman inside to step away, to fetch something from a back shelf or argue with a customer. You watch for that single careless moment when her money drawer is left exposed. You don't plan to take much. Just a coin or two. Enough to eat without stealing from another thief. Then, without warning, someone clears their throat behind you. Your heart jumps. You spin on instinct, your muscles tense and ready to flee. Your eyes dart for exits. For fences. For shadows, but the man standing there doesn't reach for a weapon. He simply watches you. He looks older. Mid-30s, though in this city that means a body worn by weather and work. He wears a dark cloak with too many pockets. His eyes are pale, steady, and tired in the way only wolves and old soldiers ever look. You're sloppy, he says, tilting his head slightly. And branded. But you've lasted longer than most. You say nothing. Because in your world, when someone knows you and you do not know them, silence is not weakness. It is armor. It is a way of listening without exposing your throat. He introduces himself as Finn. Just that. No family name. No origin. You do not ask for more. In your line of work, names are not gifts. They are vulnerabilities. He rolls back his sleeve and shows you a sigil stitched into the lining of his cuff. 2 crossed needles beneath a crescent moon. The sight jolts something in your memory. You've seen it before. Scratched into walls, carved into tavern beams, inked behind doors. You never knew what it meant. You want back in? He asks. You frown. Back in what? He smiles. It is not warm, the thieves' circle. So it is real, or at least, it is more real than rumor. Not a formal guild, not something with scrolls and signatures, but a living thing. A loose network. A system of those who have been through enough to recognize survival as a craft. They share information. They know which guards are lazy. Which alleyways provide cover. Which shops short their scales and which stalls carry coin heavy enough to matter. They do not offer safety, not really. But they offer slightly better odds. And sometimes, that is enough. Historians will argue about these networks one day. Some will say they never existed. That they were stories whispered by desperate men to feel less alone. That there are no written records, no real proof. Only symbols and patterns and the occasional disappearance of someone who asked the wrong questions. But none of that matters to you. Because now, Finn is offering you a job, market fair, he says. 4 days from now. Crowded. Distracted. Perfect. He tells you the names of those joining. You recognize two. One of them is Renner. You hesitate. Finn notices. He shrugs. You don't have to like him. Just don't get caught. So you agree. You prepare with care. You trim your sleeves shorter to move your hands more freely. You stretch your fingers until the joints ache. You ration your food so that you are sharp on the day, not dull with hunger. You polish your boots, though the cracks still show. The shine is mostly for yourself. You want to feel less like a shadow. The fair arrives in a storm of color and noise. Banners flap above the square, bright with dye and symbols. Smoke from roasting meats curls in thick columns. Jugglers throw knives and drop them. Drummers thump with no rhythm. The crowds are thick, packed shoulder to shoulder. Laughter and shouting rise in waves. Pouches swing freely. Coins gleam in the light. You move with the others. Never beside them. Never too close. That is part of the craft. No one should see a group. Only individuals. You keep your signals subtle. A double tap on a barrel. A quiet cough. A stagger means scatter. A whistle means disappear. Your mark is a cloth merchant, known for traveling with silver-threaded wares. You have seen his rings before. His fingers are plump, his hands slow. His coin pouch rests lazily on his hip. You hover, pretending to inspect fabric dyed in blues and golds. You move closer. One hand slips forward, and then it happens. Renner stumbles. It is not part of the plan. It is not subtle. It is not deliberate. The merchant turns. His eyes land on you. Your hand is still half inside his purse. He shouts. Everything collapses. You bolt. You do not see Finn. You do not see Renner. They are gone. Vanished like smoke in wind. You push through the crowd. You knock over a cart. Fruit scatters. A man grabs at your sleeve. You twist away. Someone screams. Call the watch. And then it rings, the bell, that cursed, screaming bell. You sprint down the main road, then veer sharply. You cut through a coop, feathers flying around your head. You vault over a fence. Your ankle twists. You fall. You get up. Your leg drags. But you keep going. You find a hay cart, you dive into it, burying yourself deep beneath the straw. You hold your breath. Your heart pounds so hard you can see the hay shift with each thump. Footsteps pass. Voices rise and fade. Then silence. You do not move until the sun disappears. When you finally climb out, you do not return anywhere. You have nowhere to return to. You walk. You pass the old church where the candles still burn. You pass the riverbank where Lena once sang songs you only half remembered. You pass the stable where you first met Garen. Eventually, you sit down, not because you are tired. Not because you are wounded, but because you no longer know what to do. You are not angry. You are numb. Renner set you up. You are sure of it. As sure as you are of your own name. Maybe he could not stand to see you rise again. Maybe he never forgave you for choosing a path he could not follow. Or maybe he did not think about it at all. Maybe it was just business. The circle does not promise loyalty. It only promises opportunity. And sometimes betrayal is the clearest path to opportunity. You sit through the night. When dawn arrives, gray and dull, you remove your boots. You walk barefoot to the bridge outside town. The river below is dark. Cold. Its surface ripples like stretched skin. It is deep. It is silent. It does not forgive. You stare down for a long time. You think about jumping. You do not because you are afraid. You left fear behind somewhere in the alleys. You do not jump because something stubborn, something small and aching deep inside you, whispers a single thought, not like this. If the world intends to kill you, it will have to work harder for it. So you turn, and you begin walking back. The road back into town feels different now. The stones are the same. The crooked hedges, the hollow-eyed crows, the black slush left from last week's rain, none of that has changed. The buildings lean just as they always have, and the wind still carries the sharp scent of chimney smoke and wet leather. But something within you no longer moves the same way. Not in your feet, not in your breath, and not in the quiet corners of your chest. You walk with a limp, a reminder of the twisted ankle from the market chase. The bruises under your tunic haven't faded, and the ache in your stomach still claws at your ribs. You are sore, hungry, and slower than before. But beneath all of that, something else has settled inside you. Whatever fragile stubbornness stopped you from jumping from the bridge has hardened. It has thickened into something heavier, something quieter. Not hope. Not anger. Something like resolve, but stripped of any illusions. You no longer expect fairness from the world. You no longer expect comfort or even survival. What you expect now is more. More of the same, more of the weight, more of the bitter work required just to keep your feet under you. And for someone who lives on the knife edge of medieval law, that mindset is dangerous. Because wanting more, without expecting good, makes you unpredictable. You do not go back to the slums. You do not seek out the boys with scabbed elbows and thin blankets. You have outgrown the old cellar cliques. Their whispers are familiar but too small for you now. You do not want to trade crusts for secrets or stories for shelter. You also do not go looking for Finn or anyone from the circle. After the fair, after the betrayal, after the bell, the brand on your hand may as well glow like a torch. You are marked in more ways than one, and even those who once tolerated you would hesitate now. You need a place that exists just outside memory. You need invisibility, not affiliation. So you go to the church, not to pray. Not exactly. You sometimes wish you could believe in the peace others seem to find there. But you do not walk through those wooden doors seeking forgiveness or holy light. You go because churches have corners. They have alcoves and shadowed recesses that people forget exist. They have dust and silence and cold stone that doesn't ask questions. Behind the chapel organ, tucked low and out of sight, you find a space. A gap between the wall and the rear pipes, dry enough to sleep and small enough to remain hidden. You curl up there. The stone smells like ash and old oil. The floor is layered with dust, and somewhere overhead, the wind moves through a cracked window, making the organ pipes hum softly on their own. You do not know if the alcove is blessed. You doubt it. But it holds you. And that is enough. For 3 nights, no one disturbs you. You do not dream. You simply sleep. Shallow, twitching sleep that ends at every sound. But your body is still. For the first time in weeks, you are not hunted. You are not shivering in the open or dodging patrols. On the 4th morning, you wake to a smell you cannot immediately name. Warm, faintly sweet. Beeswax. The scent rolls in like a memory you never had. Someone is humming. A soft tune, slow and steady, the kind sung without thinking. You peek out, a young monk is sweeping near the front pews. He sees you. His hands stop. His brow furrows. You prepare to run, but he does not move toward you. He does not shout. He does not fetch another brother or raise an alarm. Instead, he nods once, as if acknowledging a bird resting on a window ledge, and continues sweeping. Later that day, he returns. He carries a small cloth bundle. He sets it beside the alcove, not close enough to seem intimate, not far enough to seem indifferent. Inside is bread. And a small clay cup of water. He does not speak. He places them down, glances at you, and walks away. You eat every crumb. The next morning, he comes again, this time, he brings soap. Rough, cracked, smelling faintly of rosemary and ash. He says nothing. But he glances toward the baptismal basin near the chapel wall, then walks off. You stare at the soap as if it were made of gold. You strip off your tunic and, kneeling at the basin, begin to scrub. The water is cold enough to bite, but you do not stop. You rub away layers of dirt, dried blood, and city grime. You see the skin beneath, pale and raw. For the first time in weeks, you remember what your hands actually look like. He keeps coming back, each day, something new. A crust of cheese. A second-hand tunic with patches in the elbows. A worn copy of the Psalms, the pages yellowed and brittle. You cannot read most of it. But some words come easier now. There are drawings, and those you understand. You begin to wonder, maybe the monk does see the brand. Maybe he knows what you are. A thief. A marked one. A boy without patron, path, or pardon. But maybe he chooses to see more, and that choice unsettles you, because when someone treats you like you matter, it becomes harder to believe you don't. When someone offers you kindness without transaction, it chips away at the armor you spent years building. You find yourself wondering if maybe, beneath the grime and the guilt, there is something left of you worth noticing. Historians may one day debate whether the church truly served the poor or simply managed them, kept them docile with hymns and soup. But from where you sit, tucked in a cold stone alcove with bread in your belly, you begin to believe it can be both. Eventually, the monk speaks. You ever thought about working here? You raise an eyebrow, as what? You ask. A saint? He chuckles, not mockingly, but with a kind of warmth you haven't heard in a long time. As a cleaner, he says. You stare at him. I'm branded, you reply, lifting your hand like it's the only resume you've ever had. The skin still shows the burn. It has become a symbol of failure you carry everywhere. He nods. So was Peter, he says, by the Romans. You roll your eyes, but the cleverness stings. He does not offer absolution. He does not press for confession. He simply hands you a broom and says, sweep clockwise. So you do. You begin with the nave. The long stones click under your steps. The broom is heavy, the bristles stiff. You sweep slowly, in deliberate circles, watching the dust rise in thin clouds, watching it catch in beams of colored light that fall through stained glass. You sweep the altar rail. The choir aisle. The corners where wax has melted into stone. The motion becomes rhythm. It becomes thoughtless. Your hands, which once reached for things that did not belong to you, now create cleanliness, however temporary. You do not stop being a thief, old instincts die hard. When desperation returns, you still know how to lift a coin. You still see every loose purse. You still spot the distracted noble with too many rings and too few guards. But the broom feels different. Not holy. Not redemptive. Just honest. When you sweep, you make something momentarily better instead of worse. That counts for something, but peace is never permanent. One evening, as you sweep near the candle racks, you hear the echo of boots. Two men walk in. Their cloaks are long, dark red, trimmed with insignias you do not recognize but instantly distrust. They speak with the priest in quiet, serious tones. You do not catch every word, but a few drift over the pews. One word freezes you, heretic. You lean your broom against the wall, another word, confessor. Then, slowly, they turn to look at you. You stand very still. You learn the truth quickly. The monk who fed you, who gave you soap, a book, and work. He has been copying texts. Not only scripture, but commentaries and writings that challenge the church. Dangerous ideas. Forbidden knowledge. He has been sharing these with others. He is not just a monk, and you are now part of his story. The priest defends you. He tells them you are only a cleaner. A boy who knows nothing, but they see your hand, the brand tells them everything they need, you are taken, so is he, the two of you are shackled and led through the streets. People glance. A few whisper. Some look away. You are dragged down into the prison beneath the city. Stone walls close in around you. The air grows thick with rot and damp. Your cell is small. The window is no wider than your palm. The straw beneath you smells of old sweat. Rats live here too, and you find their presence oddly comforting. At least they are not cruel. Days pass without sound. You are questioned twice. Did he give you the books? No. Did you help him copy them? I cannot read. Did you know what he was doing? I swept clockwise. They do not believe you. But they do not yet care enough to torture you. Weeks pass. The bread they bring is hard enough to bruise your teeth. The water tastes of iron and decay. Then, one evening, the door opens. You are dragged into a chamber lit with too many candles. The flames flicker without warmth. The monk is there. His face is swollen. One eye nearly shut. They ask him about you. He says nothing. They ask again. Still silence. Then they turn to you. Confess, says one of the red-cloaked men. Say you helped him. Say the words. If you do, we will let you live. You look at the monk, his head nods. Almost invisible. Just enough, so you speak, yes. Because survival, even when bitter, still matters. They spare your life. They do not spare his. You are not allowed to watch. But you hear the bells. Not the light kind used for mass or festival. The heavy ones. The ones that toll like a wound. Afterward, they let you go. A branded thief is not worth the effort of keeping. You wander the city in silence. You pass corners where you once stole bread. You pass stalls where you once stood invisible. You walk and walk. Eventually, you return to the church, not to pray. Not to sweep. You kneel behind the organ. You reach for a loose stone. And with the sharp end of a broken spoon, you carve a small crescent into the wood base, one mark, to remember the only person who ever treated you like more than your past. Then, you stand, you walk back into the world, still a thief, but not only that anymore. You walk differently again, not like before, when you tried to make yourself small and invisible. Not with the quiet, collapsed posture of someone hoping to disappear into stone. And not with the restless pace of someone always preparing to run. This time, your steps are slower. Not out of weakness, though your feet still ache and your muscles complain with every movement. Not because you are tired, though you always are, in ways that sleep no longer fixes. You walk slowly now because your eyes have changed. The world around you, once a blur of escape routes and opportunity, has begun to reveal itself in unexpected detail. You notice how light spills across a broken window pane, making 100 miniature rainbows along the wall. You hear the subtle song of cobblestones beneath the iron wheels of a cart, each stone offering its own small note. You see how people react when they spot you on the street. The shift in their eyes. The tightness in their grip on whatever they're carrying. The way they cross to the other side with their heads turned slightly away. You are not new to being watched, but now you notice the watching itself, the discomfort you leave in your wake like muddy footprints. Your hand remains wrapped in linen, though the bandage is no longer an attempt to hide the brand. Everyone already knows it is there. You keep it covered now for another reason. You do not use that hand anymore. Not to take. Not to lift. That hand remembers too much. It remembers scrubbing dried blood off stone steps. It remembers cold iron chains and a silence shared between two prisoners. It remembers the nod of a man who chose to protect you when speaking would have saved him. That hand is no longer the hand that steals. It is the one that remembers. You are back in the world. The city is as it was. The same twisting alleys. The same stalls thick with salted meat and loud with clattering knives. The same towers and bells and crowds pressing into narrow lanes. But something about it feels thinner now. Less solid. Like if you lean too hard on any of it, it might fall apart. Or maybe that is you. Maybe you are the one who has changed, hollowed out from the inside. Either way, the streets feel less like home and more like echoes. Still, you have to eat, so you begin working again. Honest work, when you can find it. You carry buckets for the tanners, your hands raw from the sting of the chemicals. You shovel ash from ovens for the baker. Lungs full of soot. You even empty chamber pots for a widow who squints at you like she's hoping you'll vanish between one breath and the next. She mutters when she hands you half a coin, her voice coated in disapproval. You hate every minute of it. But you do it anyway, because this work keeps you from crawling back into darker corners. It keeps you away from the circle, for now, but the circle does not forget its own. Finn finds you again. You are leaning against a wall outside a blacksmith's shop, your shirt soaked with sweat and your arms trembling from hauling a barrel that felt heavier than anything you deserved to carry. You have just finished the job. You are trying to catch your breath. You disappeared, he says, as if you had missed a friendly gathering. His tone is casual, almost amused. People thought you were dead. You wipe your face with your sleeve and shrug. Worse, you say. I was clean. He laughs at that. But there's something bitter in it. Something that sticks in the air between you like sour milk. You want back in? You shake your head. Not quickly. Not forcefully. Just enough. He nods like he expected the answer, like he already knows how this story ends. Shame. There's a job coming. A big one this time. Not the usual pickpocketing. Real work. Night job. Estate on the edge of town. Quiet. Easy. You don't answer, you sure? He asks, you think you are, mostly, but you don't say yes, not yet. That night, you find shelter beneath an abandoned cart near the butcher's alley. The scent of meat clings to the wood. Rusted iron tools lie scattered nearby. You curl into yourself, pressing your back against the underside of the cart and pulling your cloak tight around your chest. Sleep comes in waves, broken by the wind and the distant sound of boots. You dream. You see the monk's face. You hear Renner's voice, sharp and distant. You smell the branding iron again. You remember the sizzle, the way the air seemed to tighten when the metal met your skin. You wake before morning, breath shallow, hands clenched. The next day, you discover the widow slumped in her chair, unmoving. Her lips are blue. Her skin cold. Natural causes, most likely. She was not young, and the city has never been kind to those who live alone, but when the neighbors gather and find you standing nearby, they clutch their baskets tighter. One of them murmurs something. Another crosses herself. A third spits in your direction. You do not wait for them to say more, you leave. Your work dries up after that. Word travels. Eyes follow you more closely. The air grows sharper, filled with the scent of burning wood and distant frost. Chimneys begin coughing black into the sky. People draw their cloaks tighter and pull their coin purses closer. They hide their bread beneath coats. The city changes with the weather, hardening, and deep inside you, the old hunger stirs. You try to resist it. You try to keep your head down. But one night, as your stomach twists and your hands shake from lack of food, you do what you swore you would not do again. You take a pear from a cart. The vendor is arguing over fish with a sailor. She doesn't see your hand. The pear is not ripe. Its skin is tough, its flesh sour, but it tastes like survival, and that, more than anything, tells you the truth. You are back in. You wait afterward. You linger near the alley, half expecting to hear the toll of the bell or the bark of a guard. You imagine a hand closing around your collar, dragging you through the mud, holding you up for judgment, but nothing happens, no one saw, and that, somehow, feels worse, because it means your hands are still good at this. Your body still remembers how to vanish, that is when you understand, the skills you buried did not rot. They matured. They waited. They ripened like fruit left in the dark. You begin stealing again. Slowly. Carefully. You do not take too much. Never from the same person twice. You target pouches that feel heavy, that drag on belts. You leave coins behind when you can. Not out of guilt, but because it makes them slower to notice. It buys you time. And time, you have learned, is more precious than anything else. Historians may argue about your kind. Were thieves rebels against the system, or parasites clinging to the edges of society? You don't care about their arguments. You know what you are. You are what happens when a child is punished before he is taught. When hunger is met with fists. When need is mistaken for malice. On a fog-thick morning, Finn finds you again. This time, you are near the docks, watching fishermen unload barrels of salt and tangled nets. He appears beside you like a bad memory. You're still breathing, he says, tossing you something hard and dry. Bread, probably. Or what used to be bread, you nod. You chew in silence, still not coming back. You don't answer, he does not press, but he tells you anyway. There's talk, he says, voice lower now. City wants to clean house. New judge. Young. Ambitious. Hates thieves. Wants to make an example. Your stomach knots. How big? You ask. Big enough to hang 5 of us last week, he replies. No trial. Just rope and bell. You glance out at the river. The water looks peaceful. From here, escape seems simple. Just walk until the street's end. Just step onto a boat. But you know better. Distance only feels easy when you have not yet started walking. Finn leans closer, but there's another job. One more. Final one. Big score. Wealthy merchant. No guards. No dogs. Just one locked room. You sigh. A long breath that feels like it's been waiting in your chest for days. Of course it's one locked room, you say. He shrugs. You take it, you eat for a month. Maybe 2. You shake your head again. He does not argue. Suit yourself, he says, turning to leave. Just remember, winter's coming. And justice doesn't hibernate. That night, you sit alone, huddled near a broken wall where the wind leaks through. You eat the rest of the crust he gave you. It crumbles in your fingers. Tasteless, but enough. Above you, the stars spread across the sky in quiet clusters. You never learned their names. No one ever taught you what they meant. The next morning, you do not go back to the blacksmith. You do not return to the church. You walk to the edge of town, to the merchant's estate. You find the door. It is tall. Painted. Locked. You do not break in, not yet. You stand there. You feel the cold creep through your sleeves, pressing against your bones. You let it. You are standing at the edge again. This is the crossroads. One last job, or one last chance to walk away. You do not know which choice is worse. You wait outside the merchant's estate until you can no longer feel your toes. Not from hesitation, not from fear, and not even from doubt anymore. The numbness comes from the frost creeping slowly, methodically across the uneven cobblestones, seeping into the soles of your worn boots and biting at the thin fabric wrapped around your ankles. The cold is patient. You are not. Still, you remain. It is late. Later than you meant to be out. The moon hangs low and sharp in the sky, casting a pale silver over the rooftops and making everything look carved from bone. The wind has died down, but the silence it leaves behind is heavy. Too heavy. No footsteps. No shouts from taverns. No clang of doors closing. The kind of stillness that makes your breath sound too loud. Everyone with a warm hearth and a heavy curtain has long since vanished inside. They have drawn their shutters, fastened their latches, stoked their fires, and settled into blankets with bowls of broth. You envy them. The estate looms ahead. Not enormous, not ostentatious like a noble's manor, but it stands tall with a particular pride. Whitewashed walls gleam under the moonlight, scrubbed clean of soot and street dust. The iron gate is heavy, probably custom-made, polished to a shine that speaks of someone who believes appearances are everything. And beyond that, the door. Not just any door, but the one you've heard of. The one that has been mentioned in whispers. The infamous locked door. You know estates like this. Not because you've lived in one, but because you've watched them. Watched from behind barrels and corners. Watched the comings and goings, the patterns of servants, the laziness of guards, the routines of merchants who had just enough gold to attract thieves, but not quite enough to hire proper protection. These are the houses that believe stone walls and expensive locks will keep danger at bay. No guards patrol the yard. No dogs bark from behind the hedges. Just walls and wood and the secrets people try to hide when they think no one is watching. You are not here to steal, not yet. You are here to decide. You move slowly. Once. Then again. Circling the perimeter with deliberate steps, taking in every angle. You count the windows. Study the height of the shutters. Measure the distance between the door and the nearest escape. You press your ear against the thick wooden gate, listening for footsteps, snoring, the creak of bed springs. Nothing. Not a whisper of movement from within. If the merchant is home, he is deep in sleep, tucked under blankets, lulled by the lie that his wealth can protect him. Or he is out of town, perhaps gambling or drinking or attending to some business that requires distance. The door itself is simple. Just a door. Wooden. Sturdy. Locked, but in your mind, it becomes something else entirely. It becomes a barrier. A threshold. A line in the dirt that separates who you were from who you might have become. It is more than an entrance to a house. It is a challenge. It is a dare. It is a reminder of everything you've tried to leave behind and everything you've failed to resist. One job. That phrase rings again. Finn's voice still echoes in your thoughts like a spell that refuses to fade. Just one job, he said. One more. One last, you tell yourself, again. That you will walk away. You make that promise. You hold it for exactly 2 seconds, then your feet move forward, and betray you. You kneel at the door. Fingers steady, breath shallow. The lock is familiar. The kind you used to practice on, back before you stopped pretending to be anything but what you were. You pick it, it clicks open far too easily. That sound, so small and soft, might as well be thunder. Inside, the house is sleeping. Not silent, exactly, but hushed. The air smells of beeswax and smoked meat, with a hint of parchment. You step onto stone floors that gleam faintly under the moonlight. They were probably polished just yesterday by a servant who earns less in a year than you once took in a night. Your boots leave faint prints on the clean surface, and you find yourself stepping more lightly, though you are not sure why. You move quickly. Purposefully. You know what you are looking for, the locked room, just as Finn described. You find it near the back of the house. The hallway leading to it is bare, save for a single painting of a harbor and a vase without flowers. It feels staged. Like something meant to distract. You pause. Something about this doesn't feel right. It is too clean. Too precise. No locks on the windows. No tripwires. No false steps. No boy pretending to sleep with one eye open and a dagger under the blanket. Just a door, waiting. Still, you open it. Inside, there are no gold coins. No ornate jewelry. No polished silver goblets or bolts of rare silk, there are scrolls. Dozens of them. Stacked carefully in pigeonholes and bundles. Ledgers bound in cracked leather. Seals pressed into wax. Names. Numbers. Notes. This is not treasure, it is something more dangerous. This is information, you realize, with a chill running down your back. That the merchant is no mere trader. He is not selling spices or counting bolts of linen. He is collecting secrets. He is building leverage. He is the kind of man who buys silence and sells whispers, and this job, this isn't about coin, this is about control. You take a step back, but it's already too late, the door shuts behind you, a quiet click. Final, then, a voice, well, says a man behind you. His voice is calm, smooth, unhurried. You made it farther than the last one. You turn. He is older, dressed in a cloak that falls to the floor, clasped at the shoulder. His posture is straight, composed. A ring gleams on his finger, stamped with a wax seal you recognize instantly. Royal Court. You've seen it on letters pinned to gallows posts. You've seen it in courtrooms where judgment is handed out like bread. You know what it means, not noble, not merchant, an investigator. You're branded, he says, gesturing toward your hand without looking at it directly. Yet here you are again. You reach for your knife, but your hand finds nothing, of course not. You've been watched, he says, stepping closer. Ever since Garen fell. Your name came up more than once. He walks to a nearby table, lifts a scroll from a pile, and unrolls it slowly. There it is, your face. Or a version of it. A sketch. Rough, crude, unflattering, and here you are, he says again, back to your old trade. You do not speak, you wait for chains. For guards. For the clanging of the bell. You expect a rope. A trial. A spectacle, but none of it comes. Instead, he sighs. Not with anger. With calculation, you're useful, he says. Too useful to hang. You blink. Confused. Suspicious, you want me to work for you? You ask, he chuckles once. Low and humorless, work with us. Occasionally. Quietly. Not officially. He picks up another scroll, we use thieves like you. He continues, for the sort of things that never make it onto parchment. Your stomach twists, spy. Informant. Shadow. Rat, traitor, he watches your face. He sees the turn in your thoughts. The way your jaw tightens. The flicker in your eyes, better than dying, isn't it? He asks, you do not answer, he tosses a coin pouch toward you. It lands on the floor with a heavy thud, then he turns and leaves. You stand in the stillness for a long time, then you exit through a side door. Into the cold. Into the wind. Into something more confusing than danger. You do not go to Finn, you do not return to the church. Instead, you walk to the river, the current is slow tonight, the surface dark and smooth, like polished glass. You sit on a rock and hold the pouch in your palm. It is heavy. It could buy food. Shelter. Warmth. New shoes that fit. Maybe even a way out. Passage on a boat. A different city. A new beginning, but at what cost? Historians still debate whether informants in medieval society were criminals offered redemption or traitors given a leash. You do not feel like either, you feel like something in between, like a coin balanced perfectly on its edge, not heads. Not tails, just waiting for gravity to decide. You toss the pouch into the river, the splash is small, you walk away. And that is when you see him, Renner, leaning against a cart a few yards away. Chewing a reed, watching you with that look that always saw more than it should. He saw everything. You're not very good at being bad anymore, he says. You don't reply. He falls into step beside you, silent at first. Then, quietly, he speaks. There's another city, he says. Downriver. Bigger. Fewer questions. New faces. You nod, almost imperceptibly. He smiles. We could go. You laugh, not because it is funny, but because, for the first time in weeks, maybe months, you think he might be right. Maybe you're not finished yet. You leave before sunrise. Not because anyone is chasing you, or at least not yet, but because the air carries something sharp and electric, like the quiet moment before a storm. The sky is still caught between night and dawn, that cold blue hour when the world feels half-formed. You walk with a purpose that isn't quite urgency, but isn't calm either. The cobblestones are slick with dew, and your breath rises in small clouds. Each step feels deliberate, like a note in a melody you're only now beginning to understand. Renner walks beside you, hands in his pockets, coat drawn tight. He doesn't talk. Neither do you. The silence between you is not awkward. It's full, like a shared blanket. The fog gathers low along the road, coiling around your boots. The city behind you fades into a blur of crooked roofs and curling smoke. Windows blink with candlelight as bakeries stir awake. You don't glance back. Not once. There's nothing to say, because it's clear to both of you, this is not an escape. You are not fleeing justice, not reaching for redemption, not even chasing hope. This is something more ordinary. More real. You are moving. Trying again, in a different place. Not to become someone new, but to see if the weight of who you were might lose its grip if you travel far enough. By mid-morning, you reach the barge. It is moored crookedly at the edge of a muddy bank, rocking slightly in the shallows. It's not a proud vessel. Its timbers are weathered and warped. One corner has clearly rotted through and been patched with whatever plank someone had lying around. Nails stick out like teeth. Rope sags where it once held tight. It looks more like a prayer than a boat, but it floats, and that's enough. The ferryman is an old man, brown from sun and wind, his mouth mostly hidden beneath a faded scarf. He doesn't ask your names. Doesn't ask why two strangers would board without luggage. He only holds out his hand, palm up, waiting for coin. Renner grins and reaches into a pouch you hadn't noticed before. You're not even sure where he got it. He probably lifted it while you were still asleep, or from someone too distracted to miss it. He tosses the coins over with a flick of the wrist, like tossing breadcrumbs to a gull. You roll your eyes. He shrugs, delighted with himself. The barge pushes off with a groan, drifting into the slow current. The river glides beneath you, black and glassy. Disturbed only by the ripple of the hull and the occasional bubble from something stirring underneath. The banks are thick with reeds. Frogs croak from the shallows. You pass clusters of fishermen hunched over nets, their boats small and silent. None of them wave. None of them look up. The sky is gray, heavy with clouds that might turn to rain but haven't made up their mind yet. The wind is faint but constant, bringing with it the scent of mud, wet wood, and something older. You feel your shoulders relax. There is something almost peaceful about it. Not joyful. But calm. You lean against the railing and close your eyes, and then, you drift, not just on the river, but in your mind. You dream, not of riches, not of vengeance, not of glory. You dream of bells that don't toll your name. Of doors that open when you knock. Of a piece of bread resting in your hands that no one accuses you of stealing. You dream of rest. When your eyes open again, the sky has lightened. In the distance, the silhouette of a new city has begun to rise from the mist. You see spires first, tall, thin, some slanted with age. Then narrow towers. Then rooftops that lean into each other like gossiping strangers. Wooden bridges curve over inlets, delicate and arched like the ribs of some sleeping beast. the air smells of coal smoke. Of fish. Of secrets, just like home. Renner nudges your arm. Ready? He asks, you consider, then you shrug. Not really. He laughs softly. Good. Means you're thinking. The barge nudges the dock. The ferryman ties it off without a word. You step down into the mud, and the cold seeps into your soles immediately. The city doesn't wait, not even for a heartbeat. You barely take 10 steps before the test arrives. A girl crashes into you. Maybe 12. Maybe younger. She wears a threadbare wool cap pulled low and a coat 2 sizes too large. Her eyes flash once, sharp, bright, fast. She apologizes, mumbles something, then slips away with the grace of someone who has done this before. You blink, pat your side, your pouch is gone. You spin, scanning the crowd. But she's vanished, dissolved into the river of people, into the alleyways and archways and folds of the city. Renner sees your face. Then he bursts into laughter, a wheezing, gasping sound that draws stares. She got you, he says. Nearly doubled over, you smirk, though it stings. You gonna get it back? He asks, still chuckling. You shake your head. Let her keep it. He raises an eyebrow, wiping a tear from the corner of his eye. Soft now. No, you say. Learning. Because once, not too long ago, you were her. Watching. Waiting. Thinner than you are now. Hungrier. Quicker, maybe. Or just more desperate, and maybe she needs it more than you do, still. It stings. You find work within a few days. It's rough work, loading fish at the docks, lifting crates that leak brine down your arms. The stench is worse than you remember, and it clings to your clothes no matter how long you scrub. But the pay is steady. Just enough for bread. Sometimes cheese, if it's a good day. Renner ends up apprenticing with a cobbler. Not because he's good at the craft, but because the cobbler's daughter is pretty and laughs at his jokes. Days pass, then weeks, the blur begins. You find rhythm in the repetition. Not comfort. Not pride. But rhythm. Wake. Work. Eat. Sleep. Repeat. Then one night, as you walk home under the thin light of a crescent moon, a voice calls out from behind. You there. You freeze. Every instinct screams. A figure steps from the shadows. Hood drawn up. Cloak swaying. Leather boots that haven't seen mud. Too clean for this street. Too clean for this life. I hear you used to work with Garen, the man says, voice smooth and unreadable. Your chest tightens. You say nothing. I'm not here for revenge, he says. I'm here for opportunity. He tosses a small bag onto the cobblestones. It lands near your boot and jingles. I need someone who knows how to get into places they shouldn't. Quietly. You don't move. You stare at the pouch. Same weight. Same shape. Same choice. Renner steps from the alley behind you. You didn't know he was following. He doesn't speak, but the look he gives you is clear. Be careful. You nudge the pouch with your boot, but don't pick it up. What's the job? You ask. The man smiles. It is not a warm smile. But it is pleased. That's the right question. The job is simple, at least in theory. Retrieve a scroll locked inside a clerk's private study. No guards. No enchantments. No alarms. Just a latch and a name. You agree, reluctantly. Renner doesn't come. He has boots to repair, stories to tell, and someone waiting for him, so you go alone. The house is smaller than expected. Narrow. Plain. A single candle glows behind a curtain. You wait for hours. Watch the windows. Watch the shadows. Nothing changes. Before dawn, you move, you slip the lock. Step inside, books fill every shelf. Maps drape the walls. The scroll sits on a desk, tied in red ribbon, you reach for it, and something clicks, not a trap, a memory, this moment. The quiet before the clamor. The calm before the consequence. The illusion of control before everything begins to crumble. You take the scroll, you leave, you deliver it, the man pays double, more than promised, you walk away with heavier pockets, but it doesn't feel like victory, because you didn't need the job. You just took it, because it was offered, and that's worse. Some historians argue that thieves never truly leave the life behind. That every new start is just a different corner of the same maze. You're beginning to believe they might be right. You return to the small room you rent above the dockside bakery and tell Renner that you're finished. He shrugs. Until next time, he says with a crooked smile. You scowl. No. Really. He raises his hands in surrender, then reaches into his tool bag and pulls out something small, a needle. Fixing things, he says. Try it sometime. You take it. First, you mend your shirt. The one with the tear across the side, then your boots. The sole that flapped when you walked, and then, slowly, you try to mend something else. You tell the fishmonger's boy a story. Just once. Just in passing, you say that a long time ago, there was a boy who stole a loaf of bread. Who was caught. Who was branded. Who was punished not for evil, but for hunger. The boy grew up. Stumbled often. Fell hard. Burned bridges. Lost friends. Survived. He never became rich. Never famous. Never someone admired in the square, but he lived, and in this world, that is more than most can say. You spend the next few weeks learning how to sew, mostly in silence. It is not the kind of silence that hangs heavy or uncomfortable. It is quiet, filled with concentration and clumsy patience. The needle feels awkward between your fingers at first, as if it doesn't belong there, as if it resists your touch. Your hands were shaped by other things, by lifting, gripping, snatching, climbing. They are rough from rope burns, from splinters, from winters spent gripping iron bars and stone ledges. But now they must learn something different. Finer. Slower, the thread tangles. The fabric puckers. Sometimes you prick your finger hard enough to draw blood. You curse under your breath more than once. But you keep at it. Stitch by crooked stitch, you begin to learn the rhythm. In and out. Pull. Tighten. Tie. Breathe. Repeat. There is something oddly peaceful about it. No rush. No noise. No lookout to whisper warnings. No bells ringing in alarm. Just the steady rhythm of thread moving through fabric, and the sound of your breath as you try to keep your hands steady. You begin small. A frayed sleeve. A torn satchel. A seam along the shoulder of your coat. Then you move on to Renner's bag, which has been threatening to fall apart since he arrived. He groans when he sees your work, claiming it looks worse than it did before. So you patch it again, out of spite this time, using a brighter thread just to annoy him. During the day, you still find labor when coin gets tight. You haul buckets of fish guts down to the water. You scrub stables until the smell clings to your skin. It is hard work, and rarely pleasant, but it pays. And slowly, something begins to shift. Fewer people spit at your boots when you walk past. Some even nod, just slightly. A few call out, asking if you are the boy who helps mend things. You never thought your name, or the shadow of it, could be connected to anything useful. And yet, here it is, still, you remain careful. You are not foolish enough to believe that one needle and a few polite nods can erase a past like yours. You no longer carry your coin pouch on your belt. Instead, you keep it knotted inside your shirt, tucked close to your skin, so it warms with your body. You still walk the alleys with quiet attention. You take note of every corner, every loose stone, every shadow that moves when it shouldn't. This city might be new, but the rules are not. They are old. They are carved into you. One afternoon, as you sit cross-legged in the alley beside the cobbler's shop, threading a bootlace through a pair of sandals patched so many times you're surprised they still hold together, a commotion stirs near the square. It rises slowly at first, voices clustering, a ripple of murmurs. Then louder. Shouting. Footsteps on stone. You set the sandal aside and wander toward the sound, wiping your hands on your coat. There, in the center of the square, a man is tied to a post, his face is swollen and bruised. His lip is cracked, and one eye is nearly closed. His cloak is velvet, or used to be, now it hangs in tatters, filthy with mud and ash. 2 guards stand on either side of him, and one reads from a scroll with the formal cadence of someone used to public shaming. Theft. Fraud. Impersonation of a city official. The crowd is restless. A few throw rotten vegetables. One tosses a copper coin that hits the man's leg and bounces to the ground. There is no mercy here. No pity. You stand still, you do not speak, not because you are shocked, but because you recognize him. His name is Jarek. He worked for Garen. Not closely, but often enough. He was louder than you. Greedier. Always reaching too far, too fast. You do not say a word. You do not let your face change. You simply turn and walk away. Your steps are even. Your breath calm. But inside, something curls tight. You remind yourself this is how it ends for people who try to rise too high. For those who forget that survival is quiet. Careful. Unremarkable. Back in your loft above the cobbler's shop, Renner is hunched over a bubbling pot. The stew smells like something vaguely edible, though you suspect even he doesn't know what's in it. He hums a tune off key. They caught Jarek, you say. He doesn't look up. Just stirs. Ha! That idiot. You nod, a pause. Then he snorts. He should have walked when he had the chance. You say nothing else. And neither does he. That night, you do not sleep easily, not because of guilt. That part of your mind is quieter now. But because you know, absolutely, without question, that you are only ever one poor decision away from becoming the next Jarek. One job. One name. One pouch of coin tossed across a table, so when the next offer comes, a small, folded note slipped beneath your door in the early morning, you do not hesitate. You hold it above the candle. You watch the flame curl its edges, watch the ink vanish, and the paper crumple to black. The fire flares, then fades. You go back to mending, you go back to lifting crates, scrubbing stalls, tightening buckles. You begin teaching the cobbler's youngest son how to repair worn sawls. He is small, curious, quick to smile. His fingers are still clumsy, but they learn faster than yours did. You see a kind of joy in him when he gets something right, a joy you are still learning to let yourself feel. It becomes a quiet life, but the quiet does not last, because word spreads. As it always does. They say a stranger has arrived from the capital. His boots are too clean for these streets. His papers are even cleaner. His voice cuts sharp, precise. He is asking questions. Not about fish. Not about shoes. But about thieves. About someone who used to work with Garen. About a boy with a mark on his hand who vanished without a trace, the boy who tells you this is a delivery runner. Maybe 9 years old, but already carved into the city's rhythms like an old coin into a purse. He has quick eyes and sticky fingers. You have caught him lifting twice, but you never reported it. He looks up to you, and that unsettles you more than anything else. You nod when he finishes speaking, you say thank you. Then you run, not away. Not yet, But to the inn, the stranger is staying there. You do not go inside. You stand across the street in the shadow of a shop sign and wait. Eventually, he appears. You do not recognize his face, but you see the coat. The way it fits. The way he moves. The way his boots do not make noise on the steps. Most of all, you see the sigil, stitched subtly inside the lapel. It is a seal you hoped never to see again. Wax once red, now worn. The symbol of the royal court. You wait until he is gone. Then you disappear into the alley. That night, Renner finds you packing. Shirt. Boots. Coin. Blade, leaving? He asks, his tone neutral. You nod, I'll come. He says, you shake your head. No. You've got something here. A rhythm. A place. He frowns. You had a place too. You smile. I'll find another. He watches you for a moment, then reaches into a basket and pulls out a pair of boots. The stitching is tight. The sole's thick. He hands them to you without a word. You leave before dawn, again. But this time, you do not take the main road. You cut through the wilds. You move between hedgerows and across sheep fields, under fences, through muddy creek beds. You dodge caravans. You keep your head down and your ears open. You steal only when absolutely necessary. You sleep in hollow trees, in dry riverbeds, in the ruins of old barns. Your boots wear down. Your hands crack in the cold. Eventually, the land opens up to sea. You reach a coastal village. It is small. Windy. Smelling of salt, moss, and rotting nets. Perfect. You take work at the docks again. It is heavy and monotonous, but honest enough. The innkeeper offers you a cot for half price after you fix her broken hinges and promise not to bring trouble through her door. You keep your head low. Your words short. Your eyes moving, and slowly, you begin to carve bits of driftwood. Slivers of pine. Your hands make shapes without permission. A bird. A fish. A fox. The carvings are rough, uneven, but the village children do not care. They grin and laugh when you hand them over. Then, one morning, a priest visits the docks. He is older, wrapped in wool, his voice smooth as smoke. You recognize the cadence of his words. His accent. The way he lifts his chin when he speaks. He's from the capital. You stay back, but you listen. His sermon is about redemption. He quotes a parable. A man who steals once, and then again, is not without hope. Only without direction. You scoff under your breath, but the words stay with you. Historians still argue whether redemption in the Middle Ages was ever real. Whether it came from honest change or could be bought with coin, confession, and ceremony. You are no scholar, but you are living proof that the truth is more complicated. You are still a thief, you still bear the mark, but sometimes, just sometimes, when you place a wooden sparrow into a child's hand and watch her eyes go wide with delight, you wonder, maybe, just maybe, that is enough. You settle into the rhythm of the coastal village like driftwood that has drifted too far to ever float again, caught and cradled in a tidal, stuck, perhaps, but safe. The motion of the sea becomes the motion of your life, and you stop fighting the pull. The days lose their edges, blurring together like salt spray against old glass. The work is honest, which is something you're still learning how to live with. And if it is dull, if it rubs your nerves raw with repetition, at least it keeps your hands busy and your conscience quiet. You patch nets, tangling your fingers in loops of twine that never seem to end. You scrub the slime from boat holes with a stiff brush until your arms ache. You carry barrels that creak and slosh against your shoulders, their weight sinking into your bones. Your back hurts more here than it ever did in the city, more than when you were climbing rooftops or hauling crates of stolen silver through moonless alleys. But now, when you lie down at night, your sleep is heavier. Deeper. The kind that sinks into you without asking permission. The kind with fewer dreams. Fewer memories. Less running, the sea becomes your clock. It tells you when to rise, when to eat, when to rest. You wake when the tide does, and you walk to the docks with the gulls screeching above you like watchmen of the sky. You eat when the sun climbs high, sitting cross-legged beside men who smell like brine and old tobacco. You sleep when the light dies over the water and the horizon swallows the sun in a gulp of fire. It is a rhythm older than you. Older than anything you used to believe in. Faces begin to blur into familiarity. You learn who curses the loudest when the wind shifts. Who limps from an old war injury. Who keeps a lucky coin stitched into the hem of his coat. You learn the names of the boats as if they are living things, which maybe they are, wood and sail and stubborn will, limping into port like dogs too proud to lie down. You even begin to understand the cadence of the fishermen's jokes, though you rarely join in. They do not ask where you came from. You do not offer it, you never show your hand. Not the one that matters, the branded hand stays hidden. Always, you keep it wrapped beneath a glove when you can, or buried deep inside a sleeve, busy with rope or tools. You do not give anyone a reason to look closely. You do not reach out when you do not have to. Out of sight, out of suspicion. That is the old rule, and some rules are still worth obeying. One morning, the village blacksmith calls you over. He is a hunched old man, as wiry as the metal he bends, and he speaks more with the swing of his arms than the sound of his voice. He asks if you can read. You shake your head. He nods like he expected as much. Then he hands you a rusted hinge and shows you how to file it smooth without breaking the shape. The task is slow. Monotonous. The rasp of metal on metal fills your ears like sand grinding through your skull. But there is something about it. The repetition, the heat, the smell of iron, that settles your thoughts. It is boring. But it is quiet, you grow stronger. Not just in the thickness of your arms or the calluses on your palms, but in ways harder to measure. You learn to wait without restlessness. To repeat without complaint. You learn to sit with the silence without fearing what it might reveal. You even start to whistle, low and soft, without realizing it, that, more than anything, frightens you. Because it means you are content. Not joyful, not floating on air, but no longer bracing for the next fall. You are unafraid. And that kind of peace never lasts long. Something always goes wrong when you start to believe it won't. It happens on a Tuesday. The sky is dull with clouds, the kind that hang heavy but refuse to rain. The wind comes in sharp bursts, tossing the gulls into spirals. Their cries are louder today, shriller, more anxious. You feel it in your gut before you see it. A ship arrives. It is not one of the usual vessels. The sails are newer, tighter, less worn by the salt and storms. The hull gleams faintly where the paint still holds. The name scrawled along the side is written in a dialect you haven't seen in years. You know it instantly. It whispers of places you thought you left behind, and it brings passengers. You scan them without meaning to. Travelers. Traders. A few nobles, or at least those pretending to be. Then one man steps off the gangplank, and everything in your body goes still. He walks with a particular lightness, a smoothness that masks calculation. His eyes flicker constantly, mapping every exit. He moves like someone who expects to vanish at any moment. You recognize the stance before you recognize the face, a thief, and worse, he recognizes you too. Your eyes meet, he nods. Just once. No smile. Just acknowledgement. Professional courtesy, perhaps. Or a warning, later. He finds you. You are sitting on the edge of the dock, watching the sea dissolve into the sky. The horizon is empty. The water endless. Nice place, he says, coming to lean beside you. Too quiet. You do not answer, he doesn't seem to mind. He rests an elbow on the post. You got a name? No, you reply. He grins, teeth flashing. Fair enough. There is a pause. Then he says it, they're still looking for you. In the capital. You exhale slowly, of course they are. Of course the past never really stops circling. Word is, he adds, you vanished. Then came back. Then vanished again. Bit of a legend. You shrug. You do not want to know how much truth is behind the rumor. You do not ask who's still searching. I'm not here to drag you back, he says. I came with an offer. You laugh, loud. Bitter. Disbelieving, no, you haven't heard it yet. I don't need to. He reaches into his coat. Pulls out a coin. The surface gleams. Royal mint. Gold-edged. Too polished for this village. It shines like a memory you don't want. You stare. He sees your hesitation and presses. Big job. Clean. Fast. No blood spilled. Just in and out. You rise to your feet. He stays still. You're really planning to spend the rest of your life fixing nets and carving seagulls? Maybe, you reply. It's better than swinging from a rope. He tosses the coin toward you. You do not move to catch it. It strikes the wood, rolls in a lazy circle, and tips over the edge. The splash is small. Almost delicate. But it echoes in your mind for a long time. You both watch it disappear. Then he turns and walks away. That night, you do not sleep. You walk the shoreline instead. The moon hangs full and white above the waves, brushing everything in silver. Your boots sink into the wet sand with each step, and the wind tugs at your coat. The sea smells like salt and old secrets. You do not look back. You think of Garin, of Renner, of the monk, whose hands never shook. Even when he faced the end, you think about the times you came close to dying. The ropes. The blades. The choices. You think about the fact that you are still here. You bend down and pick up a stone. It is flat and smooth. You test the weight in your palm. Then you throw it. It skips once. Twice. 3 times before vanishing. You almost smile. When you return to your small loft above the inn, you find something waiting on your doorstep, a carving. It is lopsided. Rough. The shape wobbles, the edges uneven. But you recognize it immediately. It is yours, copied by clumsy hands, by a child still learning. It is a fish. You pick it up gently, as if it might break. You hold it like treasure. Historians still argue about thieves. They argue whether peace was ever real for them. Whether they ever earned it. Whether a brand on the hand meant eternal damnation or merely a reminder of the world's judgment. But standing in your doorway, looking at that crooked wooden fish, you stop caring what historians think. You are not rich, you are not respected, but tonight, no one is chasing you, and you have learned how to mend, even yourself. The fish carving, the one the child left at your door, becomes something of a running joke among the dockworkers. They spot it above your doorframe one afternoon, nailed just slightly crooked, and word spreads before nightfall. By the following morning, every man hauling crates or gutting mackerel seems to know about it. They start calling you fish, with grins tugging at their windburnt faces, as if the name were something you'd proudly etched into your own forehead. As if you had chosen it for yourself. You don't correct them, you don't argue, because a nickname, no matter how absurd, is better than the alternative. It is better than a wanted poster, better than a whispered name spoken by the wrong mouth in the wrong town. It is better than reminders of the city upriver, where your face still lingers in memory, if not in ink. And it's been long enough now that no one here seems to see you that way anymore. No one squints at your features trying to place them. No one flinches when you approach. No one whispers thief when you pass. you wear the name like an extra layer of skin. Fish, the dockhand, fish, the fixer, fish, who minds his own business and never talks about where he came from. Work stays steady, just as it always has. The sea takes its toll on everything it touches. Nets fray and split wide open. Oars splinter and snap beneath careless hands. Salt air seeps into ropes, metal hinges. Boots, doors, windows, the soles of your feet, and the lungs of old sailors who should have stopped breathing sea brine years ago. But the village endures, and so do you. You've stopped flinching at every footstep behind you. You've stopped staring at the horizon like something awful might crawl out of it. And once or twice, only when you are certain no one is watching, you've even let your branded hand show in the daylight. No glove. No sleeve. Just skin, scarred and human. And no one gasps. No one points. Or if they notice, they do not care enough to mention it. This village has its own weight to carry, it does not need the burden of yours. One morning, colder than usual, the sky bleached and brittle, you are pulling eel traps from the shallows. Your fingers are already numb. Your sleeves are soaked. You mutter curses through clenched teeth as the wind bites at your neck. And that is when you see him, a boy, he is standing at the edge of the shore. Alone. Thin. Legs like sticks beneath the weight of an oversized coat. His shoes are far too big, worn nearly flat, the toes bending upward like curled leaves. His hair is tangled. His eyes are wide and hollow at the same time. He looks half-starved, and there is something familiar in the angle of his shoulders. In the stillness of his stance, you know that look, 1 part hunger. 2 parts hope. All of it wrapped in something brittle and cautious. Something that remembers being hurt. He watches you pull in the trap. Watches the eel wriggle in your hands. Watches like a dog watches a butcher, tongue wet, eyes sharp, body still. You do not speak, instead, you pull a chunk of hard bread from your coat pocket. Something meant to be your lunch, you toss it toward him, he catches it, fumbles, then devours it with such desperate speed that he chokes. You hesitate, then tear off another piece. This time, you offer it slower. This time, he takes it carefully, eyes not leaving yours. You hand him a length of rope and show him how to tie a basic sailor's knot. He fumbles. Then tries again. You nod when he gets it right. The next morning, he is back. This time, he carries a rusted tin bucket in both hands and has even managed to borrow a pair of gloves with the fingers worn clean through. He doesn't speak, but he follows your lead. He carries the bait, careful not to spill. You let him trail behind as you sort nets. You let him throw the first cast into the water. By the end of the day, he has learned how to clean fish with a half-sharp blade and a patient grip. He makes a mess of the first few, but you've seen worse. The week passes. Then another, and still, he hasn't spoken a single word. You don't press. You remember how long it took before you could talk again after the branding. Some wounds sit too close to the throat. Instead, you teach him with your hands. You show him how to reinforce a torn sail using an awl and quiet persistence. You guide his fingers when they shake. He learns quickly, maybe quicker than you did, and he watches everything. One evening, as the sun softens into pink haze, you walk toward your loft without a word. He follows, he says nothing. Just walks in your shadow, step for step. At the door, you turn and look at him. You gesture to the pile of blankets in the corner, the one you usually fold and ignore. He nods. No questions. He curls up and is asleep before the candle burns halfway. You never ask for his name, and he never offers one, so you call him Minnow, because every fish, sooner or later, needs a minnow. Time passes. The village adjusts. People notice. The innkeeper begins leaving 2 bowls out at dinner time instead of 1. The butcher offers you scraps when he catches sight of Minnow's thin frame beside you. A few of the older dockhands pretend not to see when the boy slips an apple into his coat. Minnow does not smile often. But when he does, it happens without warning, like sunlight slipping through a crack in boarded windows. Brief. Blinding. Then gone again, and one day, you realize something, you become him, the person you once needed, the one who did not ask, who did not press, who simply stayed, and just as that thought begins to offer you a kind of comfort, the world reminds you of its nature, because trouble, no matter how far you travel, always finds its way back. It arrives in the form of a ship, a merchant vessel from the capital. Its hull is torn, but its paint is fresh. Its name unfamiliar. Its crew silent. No paperwork. No explanations. Just sails and silence and too many unanswered questions. The captain avoids the tavern. He does not barter with locals. He does not speak unless pressed. He wears gloves even when near the fire. And something in the way he walks, it unsettles you, you watch from afar. You trust your instincts. You always have. One afternoon, as you and Minnow are patching a sail beneath a crooked beam, the captain strolls past, he slows, he sees you, his eyes linger longer than they should, you meet his gaze, he tips his hat. Says nothing. Keeps walking, you know that look, it is the look of someone trying to remember a name. Trying to place a face. Trying to fit your present into a past they think they once knew, Minnow notices. He tugs your sleeve, you tell him everything is fine, but it isn't. That night, you visit the harbor master. You pretend you want to check the tide charts for the next week, instead, you ask about the ship, no official record. No declared cargo. No crew spotted disembarking. No stated plans for departure, just waiting, for something, or someone. You do not sleep that night. At dawn, while the fog still blankets the village and even the gulls are silent, you leave a note in the loft, if I don't return by nightfall, go to the cobbler's wife. She'll feed you. Don't follow me. You do not sign it, you never taught Minnow to read, but you trust someone will explain. You walk to the ship in silence, there are no guards posted. No lights. The deck is slick with mist, and the wood creaks beneath your boots. You move like a shadow, you find the captain in the lower hold. He is bent over a crate, examining something wrapped in velvet and shadow. The smell is rich and strange, spices, perhaps, or something more dangerous. He looks up, does not flinch. Fish, he says, as if the name were carved into stone. Or do you prefer the other one? You say nothing, he gestures toward the open crate. Ever wonder what peace costs? You remain silent, he smiles. It's always information. Names. Movements. Secrets. Your name still matters. And that kind of weight. It moves things. You glance at the crate, weapons. He shrugs. Sometimes. You lift your chin. You hear for me. He studies you, that depends. You thinking about coming back. You look down at your hands, they no longer smell of coin and smoke. Now they smell of fish, of rope, of salt. They are rough with work, but clean of guilt. No, you say, shame, he mutters. There's always a place for people like you. You step backward. Just once, no, you repeat. Not anymore. Then you add, calmly, leave. By morning. He tilts his head. Measures your tone. Then he shrugs, fine, he says. But you're still one of us. Whether you admit it or not. You do not reply, you climb back to the deck, you do not look back. By the time the sun sets, the ship is gone, no one saw it depart, no one asks why. Minnow is waiting for you at the loft, he holds your note in both hands, he does not ask questions, he never does, but that night, as you sit beside the candle, mending a net you already repaired once before, Minnow curls beside you and speaks his first word, safe. You nod, safe. Historians still debate whether peace was ever earned or simply borrowed. Whether it could be claimed like land or lost like time. But here, with Minnow's breath steady on your shoulder and the waves pressing gently against the shore, you stop wondering, because for tonight, it is enough. Winter does not arrive with fanfare. It creeps into the village like a whisper, slow and deliberate, finding its way beneath every doorframe and between every seam of your patched and repatched cloak. It curls along the stone paths at dawn, threads through the loose boards of lofts and sheds, and nestles in the space between collar and neck. The air grows sharper, and the breath of the village turns visible, every exhale rising like smoke signals in the early morning chill. The sea darkens. Where once it shimmered a soft gray-blue under the sun, it now turns thick and inky, a black mirror of the slate-colored sky above. The clouds press low, heavy as wet wool, and the horizon disappears more often than not. Even the gulls, usually loud and ever-present, fall quiet as if they too have sensed the season turning. They perch in sullen clusters along the rooftops, heads tucked beneath wings, unwilling to cry out unless disturbed. Minnow sticks close now. Closer than ever. He doesn't say much, but his presence is constant. He shadows your movements, always nearby, always attentive. His eyes track your hands, memorizing each movement, and he pays close attention to your breath, your posture, the way you pause when something isn't right. His ears seem to hear what you do not say. There is a comfort in that. You don't speak often either. The silence between you has taken on a language of its own. You teach him what you know. Things you learned not as a thief, but as someone who survived. You show him how to salt fish, not just to preserve it, but to stretch its usefulness through weeks of hunger. You guide his fingers along thick ropes and explain how to test their strength with nothing more than touch and instinct. You teach him how to wet the back of his hand and hold it to the wind to find direction. These are not the kind of skills that belong in a ledger or in the tales of heroic men. These are the quiet tools of those who endure. The villagers begin to accept you more fully, not just as a laborer, but as someone they trust. Someone who wakes early, who works late, who mends what he breaks and does not ask for more than he needs. One day, without ceremony, the harbor master walks over and places a ring of brass keys in your hand. They clink together with a soft, dry music. You're up early, he says, eyes on the morning fog still clinging to the edge of the docks. Might as well open the place up. You glance at the keys, then back at him. You don't ask what happened to the previous keyholder. You don't ask why it's you now. You simply nod and add the ring to your belt. For once, the weight of metal there feels right. Not stolen. Not acquired through trickery or sleight of hand. Given. Offered. Trusted. Later that same afternoon, the village priest, the one with a voice like rusted hinges and hands calloused from work, asks if you might help him with a window. The chapel sits perched on the cliffs, wind-beaten and stubborn. One of its windows has shattered in the wind. You climb the ladder, slow and steady, and fit the new pane of glass with measured care. You don't look down. When you descend, the priest offers you a single coin for your trouble. You hand it to Minnow without hesitation, but the past does not disappear. It waits patiently, crouching in the corners of your memory. And on some nights, it steps back into the light. One cold evening, the smell of salt and smoke hanging low over the alleyways, you hear something unexpected. A whistle. It echoes between the narrow stone buildings, between the fishmonger's stall and the salt sheds. 3 notes, rising, unmistakable. A signal you haven't heard in years. You taught it to Renner, back when you were both boys in a damp cellar behind the cobbler's shop, passing secrets and sharing scraps of bread. You turn slowly, and there he is. Renner. Older, certainly. Leaner, with more bone visible beneath the skin of his face. There's a streak of gray in his hair, like a crack in old paint, but his grin is unchanged. Still all teeth. Still the shape of danger wrapped in charm, told you I'd find you, he says, as if it's a joke. As if it should make you smile, you say nothing. He claps a hand on your shoulder like no time has passed, like nothing between you has changed. Nice town, he says, glancing around. Cozy. Quiet. He leans in just a bit closer, voice lowered. Not for long. You feel it in your chest first. That old tightening. That quiet bracing before a fall. Why are you here? You ask. Big job, he replies easily. Big coin. Big risk. Thought you might be ready. I'm not, you say without flinching. That's not what I heard. He nods his head toward the road behind you. Minnow is standing there. Watching. A carved slat of wood clutched in one hand. You've been training, Renner adds, with a smirk. You step between them before your thoughts can catch up. He's a boy. Renner doesn't blink. So were we. You don't argue. You just look at him, long enough that something in his face shifts. He lifts his hands like he's surrendering. All right. No pressure. Just figured I'd offer. Before someone else steps into your place. Coin's heavier now than it used to be. He pulls a folded parchment from inside his coat and sets it on the edge of a nearby crate. I'll be at the old mill house. One night only. Then he turns and walks away. You don't reach for the parchment. You don't move, not for a long while. That night, after Minnow has fallen asleep, curled tight in a nest of worn blankets with your cloak draped over him, you sit by the hearth. The fire is low. The coals crackle gently. Minnow's breathing is steady, his small carving knife clutched beneath one hand as if it wards off nightmares. You stare into the flames and let your thoughts wander. You remember the cellar, you remember Garen's silence, the way he flinched at kindness, you remember the man with the soft voice and the rings that caught candlelight, the one who offered you more than money and less than mercy. You remember the coin pouch you let roll into the harbor, and how that single decision had filled you more than any meal ever had. You rise, take the parchment outside, and without opening it, strike it with a spark from your flint. It catches immediately. Curls inwards. Disappears into flame. When only black ash remains, you crush it under your boot. The night air is sharp. Your breath leaves your lungs in a cloud of steam. Still, the next evening, you make your way to the old mill house, not to answer the offer. Not to speak. Not even to be seen. You go only to watch. You crouch behind a section of the collapsed wall, concealed among frost-stiff reeds. The mill is half-rotted, its wheel locked in place, its stone walls held together more by habit than strength. Wind sighs through the beams. Torchlight flickers inside. You see them, Renner. 3 others. One of whom you know, the man from the royal ship. The one who once stood in the shadows and offered you a future carved out of blood and coin. They talk. They toast with tin mugs. They point to a map, gesturing with wide hands and sharper eyes. You don't stay, you slip away before their words can stick. Before their world can drag you back in. By morning, the mill house is nothing but black timber and smoking stone. No one survives. The harbormaster shakes his head when you ask. Lantern, probably, he says. Dry grain. Rotten beams. Bad luck. But you know better. You know the smell of cleaning up a loose end. You wait for someone to come ask questions. No one does. You expect someone to come looking. No one does. The cold deepens. The sea freezes in slow, creeping edges, and Minnow begins carving again. His hands are more confident now. Less hesitant. He hands you a hawk one day, rough around the edges but full of energy. Its wings are jagged. Its beak slightly off. But it stares straight ahead. You hang it beside the fish. The name, fish, stays with you. The children use it freely. They call out as you pass, smiling like you are part of the story. You mend boats. You repair nets. You scrub salt from wood until your knuckles split. The work is slow. It is repetitive. But it is clean. And it is honest. One morning, a merchant stops you on the dock. Offers you and Minnow a place aboard his vessel. Full-time crew. Warm meals. A chance to move again. You decline. You're done drifting. Another day, the priest offers to teach you to read. His voice gentle. His hands old. You say yes, because perhaps it is time to understand the words others have written about people like you, and maybe, just maybe, it is time to begin writing your own. The letters do not come all at once. They arrive slowly, hesitantly, like children unsure if they are welcome. At first, you struggle to even hold the quill correctly. Your fingers cramp. The ink smudges. The lines wobble and dance across the page like startled ants. You fumble through the shapes like you once fumbled through stolen purses in the alleys of the capital, clumsy, uncertain, your heart pounding with every stroke. Each letter feels like a risk. Each word, a possible mistake. You are not afraid of writing the wrong thing. You are afraid of being seen, but the priest is patient. More patient than you deserve. He speaks in tones so soft they barely rise above the flickering of the candlelight. He does not scold when you forget a letter. He simply repeats it, again and again, like a lullaby whispered into the quiet of the chapel. He holds the candle just high enough to cast light on the page, never in your eyes, and he does not ask why your hands tremble when the pen touches parchment. A is for alms. A word you remember hearing shouted from stone steps long ago, usually followed by silence or laughter. B is for bread. A word you once fought over in a shadowed alley, torn from another boy's hands. C is for confession. You smirk at that one, and the priest smiles back without asking why. Minnow, of course, learns faster than you. That does not surprise you. His hands are smaller. But they do not shake. His mind is clear, like new glass. Untangled. Unscarred. He devours words the way you once devoured stale crusts of bread behind a bakery, huddled in the rain. Sometimes, you catch him running his finger along the faded ink on old crates, mouthing the names painted there in curling strokes. When he asks what they mean, you answer. If you know the truth, you tell him. If not, you make something up. He always believes you, and you find yourself wishing you were always right. Reading changes everything. Where once you ignored signs nailed to posts and muttered notices in shop windows, now they mean something. Instructions. Warnings. Advertisements for dried goods or sailing schedules. Parchments are no longer threats waiting to be deciphered by someone else. They become part of your world, poems written in the chapel, jokes carved into the beams of the tavern, letters left behind by travelers. You begin to see words not as enemies but as tools. Even your branded hand feels different now. You learn the letter burned into your flesh long ago. Once, it had meant only one thing, thief. A single identity, pressed into your skin with heat and judgment. But now, it means other things. It means tenacity. It means turning away from what you were. It means trying, even when the world refuses to let you forget. You trace it with your eyes one night, and the line no longer looks like a scar. It looks like a beginning. Spring arrives slowly, ice loosens its grip on the village one drop at a time. Water trickles from the eaves and pools in the grooves between cobblestones. The boats groan against the docks, stretching their ropes like animals waking from hibernation. The sails flap loosely in the breeze, heavy with moisture and hope. The first ships of the season limp into harbor, carrying salt on their hulls, stories in their holds, and faces both familiar and strange. It is on one of these days that a voice speaks behind you. You're hard to find. You turn. The man who stands there is tall, well-kept, with a clean cloak and ink-stained fingers. He carries no visible weapon. No visible threat. He does not wear the leathers of a guardsman or the smirk of a thief. He looks like a clerk. A royal one. And that, in itself, is unsettling. You rise slowly from your work, wiping your hands on the front of your tunic, instinct already tightening your muscles. He does not threaten. He does not accuse. He simply speaks. You testified, once, he says, voice low. Long ago. Garin. The Ledger House. The shipment. You nod, it was useful, he continues. We followed the names. Found 3 more. Cleaned up the last of the chain. The operation's gone now. Buried. You stay quiet, he steps closer, slow and measured, not as a threat, but with a purpose. We want you to come back. Your stomach knots. You shake your head, he raises an eyebrow. You don't want coin. No, pardon, then. You hesitate. Just for a moment. And that is enough for him to notice. He watches your face carefully, then nods once, more to himself than to you. We can remove your name from the lists. The important ones. You'd be free to travel. To claim work under your real name. You could buy land. Start something permanent. Your eyes drift downward, toward your hand, the skin is weathered. The T is still there. Still sharp, still visible after all these years, doesn't erase this, you say quietly, no, he replies. But it erases what follows behind it. The doors that remain shut. The guards that pause too long. The eyes that narrow when you pass. In the distance, Minnow sits by the edge of the dock, carving something into a piece of driftwood. His tongue is pressed into the corner of his mouth in concentration. He doesn't notice the man watching him. You look back to the clerk. No, you say. He doesn't argue. He doesn't press, he simply places a scroll on a crate beside you, just in case, he says. Then he turns and walks away. You watch him leave. This time, you do not set the parchment alight. You do not take flint to paper. Not right away, you bring it inside. You sit with it, you read it, once. Then again. And then a third time, slower, then, without ceremony, you place it in the drawer by your bedside and close it. You do not forget it. But you do not carry it. Later that week, Minnow brings you his newest carving. It is a boat. The hull is crooked. The sail leans. But the ropes are carefully etched, and there is a kind of dignity in its imperfections. He places it in your hands. Yours, he says. You turn it over gently. On the bottom, carved in slow, deliberate strokes, is a single word, free. You hold the boat and feel your throat tighten. That night, you take the scroll from the drawer. You walk to the chapel on the cliff, where the sea murmurs below and the stars glitter above. You do not speak. You do not pray. You leave the scroll at the altar and walk home with your hands in your pockets, the wind in your hair, and the sky full of quiet light. The next morning, Minnow runs to you, breathless and flushed. There's a ship, he says. It needs hands. Leaving tomorrow. Going south. His eyes are wide with possibility. With longing, you know that look. You wore it once, you ask if he wants to go, he nods without hesitation. You pack his belongings with care. You wrap food in oilcloth. You tuck in dried fruit and a sliver of smoked fish. You fold his spare shirt. You sharpen his carving knife and slip it into his satchel. Then, at the last moment, you take your own knife, the one that has never tasted blood, and place it gently into his hand. You walk him to the ship. You speak to the captain. Your words are few, but they are clear. Honest. Unshaken, Minnow hugs you at the bottom of the gangplank. Tight. Fierce, he says only 2 words, come soon. You watch as he disappears into the sails, swallowed by canvas and mist. You walk home alone, your hands buried deep in your coat, your chest full in a way that feels like both pride and pain. historians still debate whether people like you left any lasting mark, but Minnow will, and that is enough. The village feels different after Minnow leaves. Not just quieter, but emptier, as if something essential has been scooped out and carried away with him. It feels like the tide pulled back farther than it should have, and in its absence, everything underneath has been laid bare. The streets seem longer now. The sea wind cuts a little deeper. The gulls cry with sharper voices, and the boats creak more when left alone at anchor. You still walk the docks each day, but your steps echo differently than before. The rhythm of two sets of boots has returned to one. You pass the bait barrels, the netting piles, the salt crates, and every time you do, you remember his hands on them, smaller, quicker, curious. You remember the way he tilted his head when he didn't understand something, or how his fingers moved instinctively, tracing the grain of driftwood like it held secrets. The boy, the thief, the student, the quiet observer. The one who reminded you that beginnings can come from broken things. You carry his memory in your chest like a glowing ember, not blazing, but warm enough to survive the wind. You carry many memories now. Garen's bitter loyalty, burned into your decisions. The monk's patience, his silence that said more than sermons ever could. Renner's wildness, unpredictable and sharp like broken glass. Finn's chilling control, calculating every move like a game with no winners. The clerk with his paper promises. And of course, Minnow, who gave you something none of them ever did. Hope without price. You don't steal anymore. Not because you believe you are reformed, or because you have found some grander sense of morality. You stopped because the hunger changed. It shifted from the gnawing ache of an empty stomach to something deeper, quieter. It became the ache of wondering what it means to be free when you no longer have to run. You are still hungry, but for something else now. Something that can't be lifted from a merchant's pouch or slipped from a distracted hand. Some nights, sleep comes late. When it does come, it arrives with dreams. In them, you see fire. Sometimes it is the fire of the branding post, and sometimes it is the fire of the millhouse crumbling in on itself. Sometimes the flames are faceless, just heat and memory. But they burn softer now. Like fading embers after a storm. You wake with your branded hand tingling, and for a moment, you stare at it. It no longer feels like a curse. It feels like a reminder. A mark not of shame, but of endurance. You continue to work. You mend sails for fishermen too tired to thread their own needles. You fix cracks in hulls. You sit by the shore with children who want to learn how to tie knots that won't unravel. You teach them what the sea has taught you. How to test wind with the back of a hand. How to listen to the wood under your feet. How to read a gull's call as a warning, not a nuisance. The sea still speaks to you. But now, it feels less like an invitation to disappear and more like a reassurance. It is home now, not a hiding place. You keep one eye on the horizon, always. Not out of fear, but out of a quiet habit, like a man who once ran and now walks cautiously, just in case, because the world does not forget so easily, but maybe, if you give it time, it remembers differently. Maybe it begins to forgive. Maybe it learns, like you have learned, that a person is more than the worst thing they ever did. You've come to understand something you never saw clearly before. Being a thief was never just about taking things. It was about reclaiming pieces of control in a world that offered none. It was about slipping between the cracks of cruelty, finding a moment of relief where none was meant to exist. It was resilience in a locked world. It was survival where hope cost too much to carry. And now, as you sit in your small loft, with a fire flickering low in the hearth and the night pressing gently at the windows, you breathe slowly. The walls creak around you like they are remembering too. The carved hawk and the fish hang above the mantel, side by side. Minnow's boat rests on the shelf, sail tilting, forever caught in a breeze. You watch the flames move like dancers, and you whisper a promise. not to the past. Not to some distant tomorrow, but to the now. You promise to keep walking. To keep rising with the tide. To keep teaching. To keep living, because that is what the branded do. They do not just endure, they survive, and sometimes, in rare and quiet ways. They even thrive. Now, as your eyelids begin to grow heavier and the hush of the night settles deeper into the corners of your room, let yourself drift with the rhythm of your breath. Let the day fall away, slow and soft, like fog retreating from the shore. The glow of the fire pulses gently against the walls, painting the room in golden warmth. Its light flickers over your skin like the touch of a familiar hand. Outside, the sea exhales in slow, steady waves. Each one carries the echo of stories told and untold, promises made in silence, and the weight of memories slowly lightening. Your branded hand rests quietly on your chest now. The skin is smooth and worn, no longer burning with pain or shame. It is a mark, yes. But not just of what you were. It is a symbol of what you have chosen to become. The stars above your roof shine with a steady calm, no longer cold or distant, but watchful. Like old friends who expect nothing except that you keep trying. The past is still there, but it does not reach for you anymore. It lingers like a mist behind you, fading with each breath you release. In this moment, you are still. Not running. Not hiding. Just resting. Your story, full of turns and shadows, is still being written. But tonight, you are exactly where you need to be. So breathe, let the rhythm of the waves carry you inward, let your thoughts settle like pebbles sinking to the sea floor, let your heart, scarred but beating steady, find its peace. You are not alone in the dark, you are never alone. Sleep well now. Let the night hold you gently, and when morning comes, rise again, not perfect, but whole. Good night.